Beneath the sacred stones of India's ancient temples lies a truth so bizarre, even modern science dares not speak its name. Here, time stands still. Cave walls whisper of flying machines soaring through the skies, carved long before mankind supposedly took flight. Ancient texts describe weapons with the fury of doomsday storms, and a bridge built by monkeys they say stretches across myth and reality, older than the stars themselves. Each explanation shatters under the weight of deeper questions. Every discovery only tightens the lock on history's most guarded vault. These aren't just stories, they're echoes of a forgotten truth, carved into eternity. Welcome to 30 Mysteries that science still cannot solve. Subscribe now to FM Uncharted Mysteries, because what you're about to hear may change how you see the ancient world forever. Now grab your favorite snack, pour yourself a drink, and get comfortable. This is going to be one unforgettable journey. First among them, the Iron Pillar of Delhi. It seems a humble column, standing quietly in a courtyard behind the Qutub Minar, where tourists wield selfie sticks and pigeons dance. Oblivious to the weight of ages, plain and unremarkable, it stretches a mere 23 feet, forged of wrought iron, standing resolute for over 1,600 years. But draw near, and the iron whispers a tale that defies logic. This is no silent relic. It's a brazen challenge to metallurgy's laws. Battered by Delhi's wild monsoons, scorched by relentless summers, choked by pollution, and kissed by acid rain, this pillar scorns rust. For 16 centuries, it has stood nearly untouched by corrosion, mocking the pages of scientific texts and the pride of engineers. While modern bridges falter and skyscrapers bow to nature's relentless tide, this silent sentinel endures, timeless, unbowed. Scholars have probed its secrets, dissecting its microstructure, pointing to phosphorus or climate, murmuring of a passive protective film. Hypotheses stack like offerings at its feet, yet none fully unravel. Why? No later civilization, even the mightiest, could mirror this iron's defiance, nor can they explain why this protective veil, like a loyal guardian, cloaks only this pillar, not other ancient metals. The truth, no one dares speak this, should not be forged in central India, perhaps in Udayagiri during the Gupta Empire, around 400 Common Era. It predates the Industrial Revolution by over 1,000 years, before stainless steel or corrosion-resistant forging was conceived. Relocated to Delhi in the 11th century by a Nangpal Tomar, it endured a grueling journey, yet its refusal to yield to decay in Delhi's open air is a marvel that humbles reason. Iron, by its nature, hungers for ruin, craving rust the moment it meets water and air, like a secret yearning to escape. Yet this pillar seems to have bartered with nature itself. Metallurgists, peering into its heart, found a bold blend of high phosphorus and scarce sulfur and manganese, a formula modern forges deem impractical. This imbalance, they whisper, birthed a delicate shield of iron hydrogen phosphate hydrate, a film that forms over years, locking the iron in a tranquil state, no longer chasing decay. But was this a cosmic fluke or a calculated triumph? Other ancient Indian ironworks, humbler and less famed, also defy rust, hinting at a lost art. The Delhi pillar, grand and enigmatic, stands as their champion. Were Gupta blacksmiths, sorcerers of metal, wielding wisdom far beyond their era. Its Brahmi inscriptions, chanting praises of King Chandragupta II, offer fleeting hints. They weave a hymn of a ruler whose creations were not mere stone, but eternal defiance, built to outlast time itself. Beyond the science, a deeper mystery breathes. This pillar is no mere metal. It's a testament to forgotten mastery, a silent rebuke to our faith in progress. It shatters our pride, upends our sense of advancement. Legends spin stranger tales. Some say it rests atop a serpent's hood, coiled beneath the earth. Others claim it marks where Lord Vishnu bound the cosmic serpent, Shesha, tethering the world's axis. Medieval tales promised wishes to those who could embrace it, hands meeting behind its iron heart until too many tried, and the government barred its magic. Now, dreams come at a cost. These stories of serpents and wishes hint at a truth beyond iron. The pillar is a beacon, a symbol, perhaps a warning. As modern empires decay and concrete crumbles, this ancient column stands unmoved, silent, eternal. The irony stings. It withstood centuries of war and weather, only to be scarred by colonial ambition. In 1862, Thomas Babington, a British engineer with more zeal than wisdom, tried to pry off its decorative crown and failed. He chiseled away a piece of its inscription as a trophy, now lost, perhaps rusting in a forgotten attic, perhaps cursed by its theft. The Iron Pillar of Delhi has outlasted time, conquest, and folly, yet its creation remains a shadow. We mimic it in labs but cannot match its endurance in the wild. It's not just an anomaly. It's a challenge to our narrative of progress. Thousands pass it daily, ticking off tourist lists, blind to the unsolved riddle forged in iron. The ancient world, where Todd was primitive, yet sometimes it built better than we do. Sometimes the past isn't behind us. It's ahead, watching, waiting. This leads to the next enigma, not a pillar, but a society cloaked in secrecy. The 9 unknown men, born from war's ashes. Their tale begins in 261 before Common Era. After the Kalinga War's carnage, over 100,000 souls lay cold under the sun. The Ganges stained with blood. Emperor Ashoka, once a merciless conqueror, stood shattered by the slaughter, renouncing violence. He embraced Buddhism and wove a conspiracy as elegant as it is chilling. Knowledge, it declared, was a flame, too perilous for reckless hands. Rather than bury or burn it, he entrusted it to 9 guardians, 9 men, 9 books, each holding a forbidden science, their names erased, their legacy a whisper. They were scholars, spies, perhaps immortals, tasked with guarding secrets that could unmake the world. For over 2,000 years, they've either faded or shaped history from the shadows. A myth, perhaps yet one that lingers like a half-forgotten dream. Esoteric lore carried to the West by Talbot Mundy's 1923 novel. The 9 Unknown paints their domains with eerie precision. Propaganda, a guide to sway kingdoms without swords. Physiology, unlocking the body's secrets, how to kill or heal with a touch. Microbiology, wielding diseases as weapons before microscopes existed. Alchemy, bending matter and energy to will. Communication, whispering across vast distances without wires. Gravity, crafting machines that defy the Earth's pull. Cosmology, mapping stars and perhaps portals to other realms. Light, weaponizing beams with lethal precision. Sociology, the blueprint to raise or raise civilizations. No book has surfaced. No proof endures yet. That's the genius of it. If real, the 9 would outwit any modern agency. Their trace is faint, but indelible. The alchemist Nagarjuna, it's said, turned base metals to gold and brewed elixirs to defy death. Were these the echoes of their forbidden knowledge, or mere shadows of a truth too vast to grasp? The alchemist Nagarjuna vanished under a shroud of mystery, a mere coincidence. Then there's Pope Sylvester II, who, in the 10th century, is said to have journeyed to India, returning with forbidden knowledge of automata, astronomy, and cryptography. His death sparked fear. His body was desecrated to ensure no demonic pact tainted his soul. Even Nikola Tesla, a modern titan, is woven into this myth. He claimed his ideas arrived in electric flashes, as if whispered from afar. His obsession with vibration, frequency, and energy echoing the Nine's rumored domains. Did he glimpse one of their sacred tomes? Did a guardian reach out? Academia scoffs, rolling its collective eyes. No solid record ties Ashoka to founding such a shadowy order. His edicts, carved in stone across his empire, speak of ethics, compassion for animals, and religious harmony, but remain silent on the Kalinga War, or this elusive brotherhood. The earliest whispers of the Nine emerge from speculative fiction and colonial musings, a detail that raises suspicion. Ashoka's rock inscriptions, scattered like sentinels, warn against venturing into certain forbidden zones, forests, and hills, where knowledge, they say, lies buried. What emperor forbids the pursuit of wisdom, unless that was the design? And here, the tale darkens. Perhaps the Nine didn't merely guard knowledge, they sculpted it, rationed it, dripping it into history, like water from a clenched fist, enough to nudge civilization forward, but never enough to let it implode. Imagine those sudden leaps. Renaissance art, the scientific revolution, the atomic dawn, as orchestrated releases, secrets slipped through careful cracks. Picture yourself as one of them, en éternel librarian, watching empires rise and crumble while clutching a book that could unravel the world in days. Do you destroy it, hide it, entrust it to a hopeful soul, and pray? Or consider a fracture some of the Nine guarding the light, others peddling it? Perhaps the age of secrets is fraying. Why now? Why do these ancient riddles resurface, seeping into pop culture, pseudoscience, and even the fringes of mainstream inquiry as lost technologies? Are the Nine faltering? Or are we finally catching their trail? Reflect on this. The past 100 years have outpaced 2,000 in technological leaps. CRISPR, quantum computers, artificial intelligence, crafting tales like this. Yet gravity eludes us. Clean energy remains a dream, and the brain's mysteries persist. Is this failure, or is it by design? If these books exist, falling into reckless hands wouldn't enlighten the world. It would set it ablaze. That's the paradox of the 9 unknown men. The wisest minds hiding their brilliance, fearing humanity's reckless heart. It rings hauntingly true. So, when you hear of an ancient Indian marvel that defies possibility, ask, is it impossible or merely veiled? If 9 men could bury knowledge so deeply for so long, what else lies hidden? Perhaps structures that defy time, temples that laugh at engineering's limits, monuments so precise they seem crafted by machines yet to be born. Enter the Kailasa Temple, carved, not built, hewn from a single mountain. You've seen grand temples, marble spires, sandstone towers reaching for the heavens, but nothing prepares you for Kailasa. You don't enter it, you descend into it, as if stepping into the earth's own memory. As secret, it's kept for centuries. No bricks, no scaffolding, no assembly, just one colossal rock, hollowed into a temple so intricate, it mocks modern builders. Welcome to Ellora, Maharashtra, India, home to Cave 16, the Kailasa Temple. Its name sings of poetry, evoking Kailasa, Lord Shiva's mythical Himalayan abode. But this temple doesn't float. It sits heavy, defiant, carved from black basalt, like a cosmic jest at civil engineering. And here's the twist that leaves architects reeling. It was sculpted from the top down. Imagine it, no scaffolding, no blueprints as we know them, just artisans starting at a mountain's peak, chiseling downward, removing over 400,000 tons of rock until the base emerged. The precision is staggering, the symmetry mathematical, the errors absent. Temples take centuries to build. This one was carved without flaw. No other structure on Earth rivals it. Scholars claim it was crafted in the 8th century by King Krishna I of the Rashtrakuta dynasty. In a mere 18 years a timeline, plausible with lasers and cranes, but with chisels, hammers, and human sweat. It borders on myth, calculated to remove 400,000 tons in under 2 decades. Workers would need to carve 60 tons of solid rock daily, without pause, without weather's interference, all while sculpting delicate deities, mythical scenes, ornate ceilings, and freestanding monoliths from the same stone. And did we mention it's multi-leveled, with drainage systems and cosmic carvings aligned to ancient stars, forming a mandala from above 18 years. Primitive tools, no blueprints, no records, just the temple. Standing in silent defiance? This isn't just art, it's architectural rebellion. Some propose lost technologies, sonic tools, or stone softening methods that shaped rock. Like clay, outlandish perhaps, but so is Kailasa. Others suggest it's older than the 8th century, perhaps restored by the Rashtrakutas, a relic of a civilization that carved mountains with ease. NASA's satellites reveal its geometric perfection, etched into the bedrock like a code. It's not just art, it's computation. Kailasa is Shiva's temple, the cosmic dancer who unravels existence. Its creation is destruction-subtraction, not addition. Negative space is art. The columns stand in perfect balance. Corridors hum with symmetrical acoustics, as if programmed, not carved. Modern scans reveal a digital-like order, hinting at algorithms in stone. Some dare whisper of extraterrestrial hands, pointing to Kailasa's precision alongside Bolivia's Pumapunku, or Egypt's Osirian structures that defy their era's tools. Are they right? Likely not. But they ask what science sidesteps how, and why. Why carve a temple from a mountain when building one would suffice? Why risk collapse for such excess? Perhaps Kailasa isn't just a temple, but a proof. A message, etched in stone. Some say it channels ley lines, amplifying cosmic energy through its rock. Studies note unusual electromagnetic activity near its sanctum, with mantras resonating in ways modern shrines can't match. Is the mountain alive, speaking through its carved heart? Yet a darker whisper lingers. Kailasa may not be a shrine, but a seal, locking something in or out. Shiva, destroyer and transformer, reigns here. What if this temple cages an ancient force? Myths speak of beings slumbering in mountains, of energies too vast to name. Locals claim the stone breathes on certain nights. That monks dream of shifting rooms and doors to nowhere. If true, Kailasa is no mere monument. It's a map, a machine, a memory, carved to remind the earth of a forgotten truth. Science stumbles, engineers marvel, historians circle in vain. Kailasa stands, humming with silent logic, its elephants and lion pillars guarding a riddle without end, like the Vedas, like the Mahabharata, like a river that birthed a civilization and vanished. Kailasa isn't meant to be solved, it's meant to be felt, a whisper from a past that may yet outshine our future. A river without a mouth, a phantom with no trace, a vanishing that haunts the ages. Science turns a blind eye to the Saraswati River's disappearance. Gaze upon a map of ancient India, and the puzzle emerges. The Indus Valley cities, Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Lothal sprawl across modern Pakistan and northwest India, relics of a forgotten brilliance. But shift your eyes eastward, to the parched riverbed of the Ghaggar Hakra, and a chilling truth dawns. These cities don't trace the Indus. They follow a ghost, a river long gone. Welcome to the Saraswati, a river so sacred it thunders through the Rigveda, the oldest Indo-Aryan text, outshining even the Ganges. It's no mere stream but a roaring goddess, Ambita, Nadita, Devatama, best of mothers. rivers, divinities. Yet today, no, Saraswati graces our maps. No mighty current matches its ancient glory. Only a dusty scar winding through Rajasthan and Punjab, fading into the Thar Desert like the Earth's lost vein. Satellite eyes, however, betray a skeletal truth: the dry bed of a once vast river, a watery highway now silenced. The ancients spoke no lies. The Saraswati was real, a titan of flow. Then it vanished. How scholars offer a tidy tale: a Himalayan river, born of glacial melt and rain, reshaped by tectonic shifts and climate's whims. Earthquakes stole its tributaries. The Yamuna veered east, the Sutlej west, abandoning the Saraswati to wither. Its cities crumbled, its story faded. A neat explanation, too neat. The Saraswati's end feels not like a slow fade, but a sudden theft, a cataclysm that erased a river, its cities, and a chapter of humanity in a single breath. You don't build thriving cities, planned streets, drainage systems, granarias, fire altars along a dying river. Yet the ruins whisper of prosperity right up to the Saraswati's edge. Just before all fell silent, thousands of years of civilization gone in a flash. It's as if the river didn't dry, but retreated. As if the earth itself recoiled. Some tie its fall to a global upheaval around 1900 before Common Era, when societies, Mesopotamia's Akkadians, Egypt's Old Kingdom, the Minoans stumbled. Something vast was stirring, and the Saraswati may have been its victim. The Rigveda chants her name over 70 times, more than any river. Yet later, Vedic texts, mere centuries apart, mourn her as gone, flowing in the heavens, or remembered in metaphor. This isn't poetic decay, it's a wound, a civilization grappling with a river's sudden absence. While its temples still stood, the Gaggar, Hakra's trench, vast enough to catch the eye of satellites, speaks of a river mightier than today's Ganges. Sediment cores reveal freshwater ghosts deep in the sand, proof of a once thundering flow. Here's the twist. Science hesitates to name the Gaggar Hakra as the Saraswati. It's probably possible, never certain. To admit it would rewrite timelines, migration patterns, linguistic roots, crowning the Saraswati, not the Indus. As India's cradle, that truth unsettles. But dare to ask, what if her vanishing wasn't natural? Myths whisper of the earth swallowing her, or of Saraswati turning invisible, flowing unseen beneath the desert. Science nods. Faintly paleo channels lurk under the Thar, hinting at a subterranean stream. How do you erase a river so vast? Perhaps you don't. You bury it. Some tales claim she ascended a celestial river mirroring the Milky Way, a galactic echo of a lost earthly path around 2000 before Common Era. Earthquakes fractured northwest India, severing rivers and aquifers. Imagine waking to find your lifeline gone, not fading, but missing. Or consider a wilder thought. What if the Saraswati slipped beyond the physical? A channel between realms sealed shut. Esoteric texts speak of sacred rivers as more than water, as bridges to other worlds, closed to guard what flowed through. In Vedic hymns, Saraswati isn't just praised, she's pleaded with, as if begged to return or forgive. Her departure took more than water, it stole memory. Cities died, languages splintered, scripts fell silent. The undeciphered Indus script lingers like a ghost's whisper. A long night followed, centuries where the gods grew quiet. This wasn't mere climate change, it was erasure. Today, we chase her with radar and sediment, hoping to trace her bones, as if finding her could resurrect a lost story. But perhaps her mystery isn't her vanishing, but our blindness to her presence. This leads to another riddle, one we see yet cannot grasp. A bridge that defies reason, a stone path across the sea, visible from the stars, called Ram Setu or Adam's Bridge. It's no grand marvel, just a chain of limestone shoals stretching between India and Sri Lanka. Yet from 35,000 feet, or a satellite's gaze, it looks deliberate, no accident of nature. To some, it's a miracle. To others, a quirk. To believers, proof. To scientists, a reluctant shrug. Ramsetu shouldn't exist as it does. Not in this place. Not aligned so perfectly with an ancient epic. The Ramayana tells of Lord Rama, seeking his abducted wife Sita, held captive in Lanka. An ocean barred his path. So his monkey allies, the Veneras, led by Nala, built a bridge in 5 days with stones that floated, marked by Rama's name, a myth. Yet the bridge endures. Over 30 kilometers from Dhanushkodi to Mannar Island, just beneath the waves, satellites from NASA and India's space agency reveal its near-perfect line. Barking debate, initially dismissed as a natural reef or sandbar, it grew contentious in 2002 when NASA's images fueled questions. Is the Ramayana real? India's Archaeological Survey declared it no man-made work, just geology's whim. Yet the stones defy nature, porous, buoyant, floating on water. Unlike typical limestone, geologists note no volcanic activity to explain their pumice-like air pockets. Some whisper of ancient engineering, others of magic. The bridge's path mirrors the Ramayana's map, Ramaswaram. Dhanushkodi, Lanka, geographically precise. Geological studies date its sandy base to 4,000 years ago. But the stones atop are younger, 1,000 to 1,500 years old. Did someone place them atop an ancient sandbar, crafting a bridge with floating stones? This brings us to the Veneras, the monkey army, and their impossible feat. The Veneras, often called monkeys, emerge in the Ramayana as more than beasts, beings with speech, cunning, and architectural prowess. Some scholars whisper they weren't literal primates, but a lost humanoid race, perhaps an extinct branch of humanity, or forest-dwelling sages wielding advanced knowledge, akin to what we deem non-human intellects. In 5 days, they built Ramsetu. The tale claims, after Rama's triumph, the gods veiled the bridge beneath the waves, not destroyed, but hidden, much like the structure that endures today. Could the Ramayana be more than myth, a cipher for history, cloaked in divine poetry? Rama, a mortal king deified; Veneras, an allied species; Ravana, a rival power; and Ramsetu, a feat of engineering sung as legend. Sounds far-fetched, perhaps, yet human memory fades swiftly. We question moon landings from a mere 60 years ago. Stretch that amnesia across millennia, and advanced engineering morphs into tales of monkey gods and magical bridges. Archaeology shoes from admitting it, but we still can't fathom how ancient megaliths rose. We guess at how 100-ton stones were lifted with primitive tools, how watertight cities were built without cement, how mountaintops became temples without plans. Ramsetu echoes the dissonance, a real, anomalous bridge, aligned with myth, challenging history's steady timeline. Efforts to dredge or alter it falter storms, lawsuits, mysterious failures, as if the bridge itself resists. The Sethusamudram project, meant to carve a shipping canal, stalled amid protests, technical woes, and whispers of divine wrath. To many, Ramsetu isn't just sacred, it's alive. A relic with a pulse. Who built it? If the Ramayana holds true, the Veneras were its architects. Even as a metaphor, it suggests an ancient people with the skill and purpose to span 30 kilometers of ocean millennia ago. Why? For war, migration, or ritual. Their fate not vanished, but woven into myth. Deified. Erased losers become legends when victors write history. The stones, buoyant and stubborn, remain. In 2007, a satellite scan of the Indian Ocean floor glimpsed man-made patterns, grids, alignments, Submerged architecture, not near Ramsetu, but deeper, older, hinting at another bridge, another civilization. This isn't just a bridge. It's an echo, a history carved in stone. Science, for all its tools, stumbles before such whispers. If Ramsetu is deliberate, human achievement stretches far beyond the Indus, beyond Mesopotamia, beyond the label primitive. If we're wrong about this bridge, what else have we misjudged? Perhaps everything like cities swallowed by seas, myths mistaken for memory, or Dwarka, a golden city cursed to drown, dismissed as fiction until ruins surfaced underwater. Fear isn't a monster or a god with too many arms. It's a vault, a sealed door, a chamber with no key, and a shadow of doom. Welcome to the Padmanabhaswamy Temple in Kerala, India, a place that dwarfs adventure tales and conspiracy novels, dedicated to Lord Vishnu. Reclining on the cosmic serpent Ananta, it's a nexus of myth, monarchy, and mystery. Its Dravidian Shara architecture standing for centuries. Its fame, however, came not from worship but a court order. In 2011, India's Supreme Court demanded an audit of the temple, long whispered to hide vast treasures beneath, guarded by the Travancore royal family. Vaults A through F were opened, revealing gold coins, diamond crowns, ancient idols, billions in tangible wealth, crowning the temple as the richest religious site on earth. Then came Vault B, unopened, not by locks, but by dread. This isn't a room. It's a legend etched in stone, sealed with serpent carvings, and a Naga bandhana, a tantric curse with no counterspell. Priests, royals, even the court hesitate, for opening Vault B isn't archaeology, it's defiance. Lore warns it remains shut until the cosmic cycle ends, its contents unknown. More gold, ancient texts, or something darker, a weapon, a relic, a force. Legends speak of guardians, not mere symbols, but metaphysical sentinels. Disturbing the vault without lost rituals could unleash calamity. It's not just locked, it's alive, watching, waiting, remembering. Attempts to breach it falter tools, hum with strange vibrations. Cobras appear at the entrance. Engineers speak of energy fields, nightmares, illnesses, and deaths shadow the curious. Coincidence, perhaps. Some theorize Vault B holds no treasure, but knowledge manuscripts predating the Vedas, a cosmic ledger, or a gateway, a rift between worlds, sealed for a reason. Padmanabhaswamy's Vishnu, birthing Brahma from his navel, isn't just worship. It's a cosmic blueprint of creation and time. A sealed vault at its heart isn't architectural, it's deliberate. A void in divinity's house. Sonar and satellites hint at vast, unmapped corridors beneath the temple, a mere glimpse of a subterranean labyrinth. Vault B may be the start, guarding something we wisely forgot. What if it holds proof that shatters history? A cosmic artifact too dangerous for reckless hands. Why else seal it with a curse? Why else do priests, kings, and scientists recoil? Vault B is a national Schrodinger's box, nothing or everything, and we fear the latter. The Bhagavata Purana warns that in each age's end, truth buries itself, knowledge hides, and the wise become mad. Vault B feels like that prophecy, a test in stone. Mysteries don't stay sealed forever. As we pray, the stone cracks, and when the door opens, we may find not gold, but a mirror, a weapon, a vibration, a book, or a machine that soars. What else have we grounded? Flying machines belong to the 20th century, born from Da Vinci's dreams and the Wright brothers' wings. A neat tale of progress. Yet ancient Sanskrit texts, older than Christianity, shatter that story. Vimanas, described in the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Vimanika Shastra, aren't poetic chariots, or spiritual visions. They're mechanical, weaponized, navigated craft, soaring thousands of years ago. Not pulled by horses or flapping wings. These multi-level, rotating vessels resemble aircraft, spacecraft, or even UFOs, depending on your daring. The Ramayanas Pushpaka Vimana, built for Kubera and used by Ravana, flies at will, carrying throngs. Rama returns to Ayodhya aloft. The Mahabharata details aerial wars, Vimanas firing projectiles, casting gleaming beams, thundering, vanishing into thin air. Some are circular, others cigar-shaped or pyramidal. Some emit mercury vapor, spinning on axles. These aren't hymns, but manuals, technical, in a time when humanity supposedly built only huts, while Greeks were still crafting philosophy. The most startling revelation emerges not from ancient myths, but from a controversial rediscovery in the 20th century. The Vaimanika Shastra, said to be channeled in the early 1900s by a mystic, Subbaraya Shastri, claims it was received through psychic whispers from the sage Bharadwaja. This Sanskrit treatise unveils the secrets of ancient flying machines, a blueprint from a lost age. Its pages astonish. It details Vimanas Rukma, Sandara, Tripura, Shikuna, each with distinct flight patterns, vertical ascents, hovering, zigzagging through the skies. It speaks of power sources, solar energy, mercury ion engines, atmospheric currents, of materials like heat, absorbing metals, and anti-gravity alloys, of pilot protocols and cloaking systems. One passage describes invisibility through vibrations and solar reflections. Another, how to disable enemy craft with focused sound waves. It even mentions materials not of this earth, as if plucked from the stars. The text reads like a fevered vision, or perhaps a fragment of truth, stripped of context and left to drift in myth. Skeptics dismiss the Vaimanika Shastra as fantasy. In 1974, scientists at the Indian Institute of Science deemed it aerodynamically absurd, too heavy, too mystical, unfit for flight. Yet they judged it through the lens of modern physics, like measuring a quantum realm with a sundial. The Shastra speaks a forgotten tongue of vibration, resonance, and energy harmonics, closer to quantum field theory than Newton's laws. It's not wrong. It's alien to our understanding. Even if Subbaraya Shastri conjured it, how did a village mystic, unlettered in science, craft 100 pages of Sanskrit aeronautics, complete with diagrams and material science? If his claim of psychic transmission holds, he didn't create it. He recalled it. This sparks a deeper question. Where did this knowledge rise? And why did it dare to entertain a fringe yet gripping theory? Ancient India knew a technological epoch rivaling or surpassing ours. Cities like Dwarka weren't merely spiritual, but mechanically advanced. They're Vimanas, not metaphors, but machines, relics of a collapsed era. What felled it? War, cosmic cycles, or entropy's slow grind? The Mahabharata paints battles that scream of nuclear devastation, airborne weapons, beams that melt armor, blasts that blind, burn, and leave barren lands. Survivors shedding hair and nails. A single projectile, charged with the universe's power, evokes mushroom clouds millennia before Hiroshima. And what bore these weapons? Vimanas? If this is truth, not myth, these are no mere stories. They're veiled records. History cloaked in allegory. Vimanas aren't relics. They're warnings. Military craft built for surveillance, stealth, and destruction, piloted by beings not gods, not angels, but humans who mastered energy's secrets, rewriting the universe's code. Technocrats or technomystics. They soared, vanished, and killed from the skies. When their world fell, through hubris or wrath, their knowledge was buried, encoded in temple carvings, whispered in mantras, hidden in plain sight. awaiting a day when we'd claim it as our own. Here's the final twist. Sharp as a blade, the Vimanika Shastra is but a fragment, a shard of a lost library. Scholars agree it's incomplete, hinting at blueprints, engines, or even Vimanas themselves. Entombed in palm leaf manuscripts, sealed in vaults like Padmanabhaswamy, or buried beneath sacred stone. Imagine unearthing one. Would we reverse engineer it, fly it, weaponize it? Likely. And there lies the tragedy. We're not yet the seers of the Vedas. We mock ancient flight as fantasy, while crafting drones that kill from 3,000 meters, blind to the irony that the past may hold the keys to a future we're too reckless to wield. We call flight progress. Yet perhaps it's a forgotten echo. The question isn't whether Vimanas soared, but how often we've flown and lost the memory. What else did we craft before the world fell? Before temples like Kailasa were summoned from mountains, before the twin suns blazed in the Mahabharata's sky. Some tales shine brighter, not for their drama, but for the paradox they cradle, half symbol, half truth, flickering between myth and history. One such story stops scholars and mystics alike. The day India's sky held two suns. Buried in the Mahabharata's war-torn verses, the Drona Parva paints a scene that chills. Two suns blaze above, comets rain fire. The earth trembles, rivers run backward, and flames burn without fuel. This isn't mere poetry. It's a dispatch from chaos, a cosmic unraveling. The sky fractures, nature rebels, and reality stumbles, all tied to war and divine wrath. If the Mahabharata is more than myth, a coded memory, as it increasingly seems, this demands our gaze. What were these twin suns? Theories abound. Some point to a supernova, a star's death flashing bright as day, as ancient Chinese texts note guest stars that flared and faded, yet supernovas leave traces. Nebulae, pulsars visible in stellar maps. No such echo aligns with the Mahabharata's timeline, roughly 3000 to 1500, before Common Era. A comet, perhaps blazing near the sun, possible. But comets, trail tales, not perfect orbs. And the epic distinguishes two suns from blazing comets. A meteor's fireball, burning briefly brighter than the sun, conceivable, yet no meteor lingers, like a steady star. Now the theories turn strange, where science hesitates and ancient seers nod. Could our sun once have had a shadowy twin, a dim star called Nemesis, cycling back every millennia to stir chaos myths from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Mesoamerica? Whisper of second suns, harbingers of doom. Some astrophysicists entertain Nemesis, its orbit spanning tens of thousands of years, triggering quakes, extinctions, and collapsed cities eerily like the Mahabharata's Kurukshetra war, heralding the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness. The twin suns, in this light, aren't anomalies, but omens, or consider a plasma discharge, a cosmic arc between planets, or a comet, painting the sky with auroras so fierce they mimic a second sun. The Mahabharata, then, isn't myth, but a log of electrical storms, vivid and unforgettable. Stranger still, what if the second sun was no star but a Vimana, a craft blazing bright as day, perhaps the Brahmastra, a weapon of apocalyptic fire, its fallout quakes, reversed rivers, barren lands mirrors, nuclear devastation, impossibly etched in a text 3,000 years old. Twin suns challenge more than astronomy. They question the singularity, programmed singularity of our sun, the stability of our cosmos. Across cultures, they signal endings. Norse wolves devouring sun and moon, Mesoamerica's fifth sun consume, India's Kali Yuga dawn. The Mahabharata reports it coldly. Two suns, then Var, then darkness. The true terror, not that they appeared, but that they might return The ancients builders, without tools, flyers, without engines, left warnings, not metaphors. They weren't primitives, they were survivors. Their twin suns, perhaps a cosmic reset. This leads to a system that never lies, time itself. The Vedic calendar, no mere tally of days, is a cosmic machine, tracking epochs with unearthly precision. Unlike our patchwork Gregorian calendar, born of Roman gods and papal fixes, the Vedas, India's ancient texts, measure time in yugas, vast cycles spanning millions of years. Satya Yuga, the age of truth, lasts 1,728,000 years. Treta Yuga, 1,296,000. Dvapara Yuga, 864,000. And Kali Yuga, our current age of darkness, 432,000. These aren't random figures, but precise ratios, multiples of 432, a number that hums like a cosmic pulse, defying the simplicity of a farming culture's knowledge. The Earth's diameter is approximately 7,920 miles, which equals 432 times 18.33. The Sun's radius is approximately 432,000 miles. There are 86,400 seconds in a day, which equals 432 times 200. The average human breathes 21,600 times per day, which equals 432 times 50. It's as if the Vedic sages weren't just guessing, they were measuring something fundamental. Now, here's where it gets wild. Beyond the mythological yugas, the Vedic tradition also describes a 24,000-year cycle known as the precession of the equinoxes, a slow wobble in the Earth's axis that shifts the position of constellations over time. Modern astronomy confirms this. The Earth completes a full axial precession every approximately 25,772 years. The Vedas round it to 24,000 and break it into two halves, upward and downward arcs, like inhales and exhales of cosmic consciousness. This is not primitive astrology. This is sidereal astrophysics before telescopes. The concept comes through strongest in texts like the Surya Siddhanta, an astronomical treatise dated conservatively to 500 Common Era. Though many believe it preserves much older oral traditions, the text calculates the length of a sidereal year, the time it takes Earth to orbit the Sun relative to fixed stars, with an error margin of just 1.4 seconds compared to today's value. Let that sit with you. A 1,500-year-old text with no known observatories, 0 telescopes, and no satellites nails the mechanics of our solar system to the second. So, who were these people? How did they know, and what were they measuring? According to some scholars, fringe ones, sure, but increasingly relevant, the 24,000-year cycle corresponds not just to stellar drift, but to consciousness drift. The theory posits that humanity passes through rising and falling phases of awareness, intelligence, and spiritual connection. It's a cosmic sine wave of evolution and entropy. In the upward arc, we become more aligned with truth, reason, and empathy. In the downward arc, we collapse into chaos, delusion, and materialism. Sound familiar? The Kali Yuga is the lowest point in the cycle, an era where virtue was reduced to 1/4 of its former strength, where corruption thrives, truth decays, and technology outpaces wisdom, where humanity forgets what it once knew. A lot of cultures describe a golden age. Only the Vedic system quantifies its return. Let's look at the dates. According to modern interpretations like those proposed by Swami Sri Yukteswar in the 19th century, we're already past the worst. He recalculated the Yuga cycle, not as millions of years, but as symbolic of a 12,000-year decline and 12,000-year ascent tied directly to axial precession. Under this model, the Kali Yuga ended in 1700 Common Era, and we are now in the ascending Dwapara Yuga, an age of rediscovery, which would explain a lot of electricity, quantum physics, genetics, artificial intelligence, spaceflight, We've crammed more technological evolution into the last 300 years than in the previous 3,000. According to the Vedic cycle, we're regaining what we once lost. Not discovering it, it's not progress. It's a recollection. But recollection of what? There's a line from the Rigveda 7, are the wheels of the chariot, drawn by one horse with 7 names. For centuries, people thought it was poetry. Now, it's suspiciously close to the modern model of the electromagnetic spectrum or even quantum field theory, a single unified energy expressed in 7 vibrational modes. And remember, the Vedas don't just track the Earth. They describe the positions and velocities of planets, lunar phases, eclipse patterns, solstices, equinoxes, everything without observatories, without metal instruments, without error. Maybe they had something else memory. Some believe the Vedic calendar is a remnant of a lost high civilization, pre-Ice Age, pre-Cataclysm, the cultural source from which Sumerians, Egyptians, and even Mesoamericans drew fragmented echoes, a civilization that didn't build skyscrapers or factories, but knew how to read the stars and time itself. What if they encoded that knowledge into rhythm? Because that's the real genius of the Vedic calendar. It's not static. It doesn't just count time. It sings it through mantras, through rituals, through resonant harmonics tied to planetary cycles. Knowledge was stored in sound, in vibration, in repetition, which ironically makes it indestructible. You can burn a book, you can destroy a temple, but you can't kill a song. And that's what the yugas are. A song of time looping across millennia, waiting to be remembered. And we are remembering, slowly, stupidly, through trial and error, through science that rediscovers what sages once listened to. And maybe that's why, when we see ancient stone carvings of wheels, mandalas, orthosmogonis, we think ritual, but what we're really seeing is a clock, and it's ticking. So maybe this isn't the beginning of a technological age. Maybe it's the comeback tour of a civilization that never really died. And if that's true, then we must ask, what else have they left for us to remember? Maybe a clue carved into a wall, not written in ink, but in geometry, in size, in impossible precision, an ancient machine not built to fly, but to count the stars, and maybe to tell us when to try again. The Jantar-Mantar astronomical devices. From a distance, it looks like a brutalist playground, abstract stone arcs, sloping staircases to nowhere, walls tilted odd angles. It doesn't look ancient. It doesn't even look functional. It looks like something an avant-garde sculptor might have built after 3 espressos and a head injury. But this is Jantar-Mantar, and it's not art. It's a machine, scattered across India, Jaipur, Delhi, Varanasi, Ujjain, and Mathura. 5 massive structures built in the early 18th century by Maharaja Jai Singh II, a man who loved astronomy more than politics and geometry more than war. He was a king, yes, but also a data obsessive, a man who looked at the night sky and saw not myth, but math. And he built monuments to prove it, except they weren't monuments. They were calculators, stone-built analog computers, the size of houses, capable of measuring time, plotting planetary positions, predicting eclipses, and tracking celestial alignments with terrifying accuracy. But here's the catch. No one knows how he did it. Because these weren't random sundials or giant compasses, they were calibrated to absurd levels of precision, up to 2-second accuracy in telling local solar time. With stone, no computers, no global positioning system, just marble and muscle and knowledge that, according to textbooks, shouldn't have existed in the 1700s, which makes the story harder to believe. Let's talk about the Samrat Yantra. In Jaipur, it rises like a slice of a sun god's blade, 73 feet tall, inclined at exactly 27 degrees to match the city's latitude. It's not decorative. It's a giant equinoctial sundial, a device that measures time by casting shadows. Except Unlike a pocket sundial, this one reads time with down-to-the-second accuracy, using nothing more than the sun and stone. Engineers have studied it. Architects have tried to replicate its scale. Most fail. Because this thing doesn't just measure time, it's synchronized to celestial movement, aligning with the Earth's rotation, orbital, and solar declination. It's a physical ephemeris, one that's still accurate 3 centuries later. Now, multiply that idea across dozens of other instruments. The Jai Prakash Yantra, a hollow bowl that maps the celestial sphere and shows the positions of stars at any given time. The Rama Yantra, a vertical column surrounded by concentric circles used to measure the altitude and azimuth of celestial bodies. The Misra Yantra, a device that determines the shortest and longest days of the year and pinpoints the exact moment of noon in multiple cities simultaneously. No moving parts, no gears, just geometry. But here's where things get strange. The official history says Jai Singh built these to update Islamic astronomical tables. Fair enough. He was influenced by Persian, Arab, and Hindu sources. He had access to the best minds of his time. But even with that, how did he design instruments so massive, so perfectly oriented, and so durably precise that modern astronomers still use them to calibrate telescopes? Where did the base data come from? Where did he get the formulas? Because the Vedic texts he referenced, the Surya Siddhanta, Brahma, Sphuta, Siddhanta, and Aryabhatiya, already contained mind-blowing mathematical insights. The Earth's circumference, calculated with less than 1% error, a heliocentric model centuries before Copernicus. The concept of zero as a number, trigonometric functions, and sine tables, eclipse predictions accurate to hours, and that's 1,000 years before Jai Singh. So again, what exactly was Jai Singh doing? Maybe he wasn't innovating. Maybe he was restored. There's a recurring theory in Indian historical cycles that knowledge is cyclical, not linear, that every age ends in loss, and every new age rediscovers what the old ones already knew. Jantar Mantar, in this view, wasn't revolutionary. It was archaeological, an attempt to reconstitute a forgotten toolkit. Jai Singh wasn't inventing. He was decoding, and he might have succeeded because the instruments do something else, something subtle. They tune space. Spend time there, especially in Jaipur, especially during a solstice. And you start to feel it, the angles, the vibrations, the resonance of shadow and silence. It's not spiritual in the incense swinging sense. It's acoustic, electromagnetic. Something vibrates in the stone itself, as if the devices are harmonizing with the sky. That's not science. That's engineering sorcery. Some researchers have proposed that these instruments aren't just astronomical. They're resonant structures, amplifying specific frequencies from solar radiation or Schumann resonance, the Earth's low-frequency electromagnetic hum. Others go further, suggesting that Jantar Mantar is a ground-based calendar machine, like a stone processor, taking celestial input and generating not just data, but rhythms, cosmological music. A calendar you don't read. You stand inside and listen. Now, we're getting close to something ancient, a time before telescopes, before paper, when knowledge wasn't written, it was inhabited. When a priest didn't consult a chart, she stood in a structure tuned to the stars and simply felt the answer. This isn't woo. This is what we're rediscovering with quantum sensors and photonic crystals. That reality is structured in vibration. That time and space are interactive, and maybe, just maybe, Jantar Mantar was a prototype for how to experience time without devices, a stone algorithm. And then there's the kicker. Jai Singh left no personal records about how he designed the instruments. No diary, no calculations, no blueprints, nothing. As if he didn't need to, as if he was simply remembering, channeling, reconstructing an operating system his ancestors used long before history was written down. And if that's true, then what else was he trying to rebuild? Because timekeeping is never just about time. It's about ritual, agriculture, war, and resurrection. It's about knowing when to act. And maybe that's why these devices still work. Because time hasn't changed. Only we have. And if we've forgotten how to read the stars, maybe the stars haven't forgotten us. Maybe they're waiting for us to look up and remember, just like the temple stones, just like the sacred seals, just like the ancient script that stares back at us from pottery shards and broken walls, unreadable, undefeated, and still refusing to speak. The repeating symbols of the Indus Valley script, you stare at it like it's about to blink. Line after line of tiny carvings etched into soapstone, terracotta, and copper tablets. Abstract, compact, repetitive, and utterly silent. It's not a language you can hear, not one you can even fake your way through. It doesn't resemble Sanskrit or Tamil or any known Indo-European language. It doesn't care about your Rosetta Stones or your decipherment theories. It just sits there, watching, judging. This is the Indus Valley script, and it is without question one of the greatest unresolved linguistic mysteries of human civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization, or Harappan civilization, if you're on formal terms, was one of the earliest urban societies on Earth, contemporary with Egypt and Mesopotamia, between 2600 and 1900 before Common Era. They built cities with indoor plumbing, grid-patterned streets, standardized weights, multi-story homes, and a trading network that stretched from Sumeria to Gujarat. They also left behind thousands of inscriptions on seals, on pottery, on tools, on amulets, on walls. About 4,000 examples have been found to date. Some contain just a few characters, others stretch across multiple lines. Most are bafflingly consistent, and none of them have been definitively decoded. Not one. That's not for lack of trying. Every year, some new scholar steps forward, claiming they've cracked the code. They use statistical models, artificial intelligence pattern recognition, or linguistic reverse engineering. Theories pile up. It's Proto-Dravidian. It's a logo-syllabic system. It's a rebus code. It's a ritual language. It's not a language at all. But the script remains impervious. Because here's the twist. The script doesn't behave like anything else we've ever seen. It doesn't follow the phonetic rules of alphabets. It doesn't exhibit the character repetition of known syllabaries. It doesn't evolve over time. And the inscriptions are too short, usually 5 to 7 characters long. To apply standard decryption techniques, it's like trying to read a text message from someone who only ever types emojis. And that's one theory. Actually, that the Indus symbols weren't meant to be read aloud, but interpreted visually. That they functioned like ideographs, conveying entire ideas or categories rather than specific words or phonemes. Kind of like traffic signs or religious icons. Not a language in the traditional sense, but a cognitive interface, which would make the Harappans not illiterate, but post-literate. People who opted out of writing as we understand it. Wrap your head around that. The possibility that the oldest literate civilization on the Indian subcontinent invented a script and then used it to avoid language. Then there's the other possibility that the script is a cipher, not a system for communication, but a code meant only for insiders. In this view, each symbol isn't a word or a syllable. It's a trigger, a mnemonic, a key to a knowledge system passed down orally rituals, chants, philosophical concepts. In other words, the writing doesn't say anything on its own. It's a password for the initiated, which is exactly what some Vedic traditions suggest. The Vedas were never written down for thousands of years. Their transmission was entirely oral. Sonic precision passed from master to disciple, a spoken technology. If the Indus script is tied to this knowledge lineage, then it wouldn't be about syntax or grammar. It would be about access. But maybe the most disturbing possibility is the simplest. We're not supposed to understand it. Maybe the script was built to be contextual, tied to a worldview that we've completely lost. A cosmology, a ritual logic, a way of being in the world that no longer exists. The grammar of a civilization that didn't write to store data, but to tune. Let's look at the symbols. Some resemble fish, others tridents, trees, squares, circles, but they're not literal. They repeat in patterns like motifs in a musical scale, and they often appear next to animal figures, unicorns, bows, elephants, etched with surreal precision, often surrounded by abstract glyphs that seem to reference something deeper. What were these religious codes? Trade documents, spell books, maybe all of the above, maybe none, because we don't even know the sounds behind the script, which makes it technically not a lost language, but a mute one, and yet it persists. Thousands of seals, all saying something, or maybe just thinking it. One famous seal, M414, if you're into catalog numbers, shows a humanoid figure in a yogic posture surrounded by animals. Scholars call him the Pashupati seal, possibly the protoform of Shiva. If true, then that's the oldest known representation of yoga. Not a story, not a doctrine, a symbol designed to bypass speech. And that might be the point, that the Indus script was never meant for communication, but for activation. A semiotic switchboard, a library of sacred forms, the kind you don't read, but contemplate, the kind that changes you, not your inbox. That theory sure lines up with certain tantric philosophies, where form is vibration and meaning is secondary. A yantra isn't a diagram, it's a portal. A mantra isn't a sentence, it's a frequency. In that world, writing isn't a tool, it's a weapon, or a door, or a lock. So maybe we're approaching the Indus script all wrong, trying to read it like modern linguists. When it was built by mystics and architects and engineers of symbolic structure, a few researchers have tried looking at the seals not as language, but as code. Binary pairs, logic gates, compressed datasets. One group even proposed the script as a genetic model, mapping symbol sequences onto biological algorithms. Sounds crazy. So does a rust-proof iron pillar. So does a temple carved downward from a mountain. So does a 24,000-year clock. And yet here we are, staring at thousands of signs that defy not only interpretation, but our very idea of what language is supposed to be. What if the Indus people were speaking to something besides each other? To the earth, to the sky, to whatever lives between vibration and silence. Because symbols don't just represent, they shape, they hold, they contain, and maybe some symbols don't want to be known. Not yet. Because what happens when we finally crack the Indus script? What happens when the silence ends? What truths come loose? What ancient trauma reboots? Maybe it's not a question of if we'll understand it, but whether we'll be able to handle what it says. Because words have power, and some languages are better left unread, especially if they speak of secrets, buried not just in stone, but in law, edicts that warned us where not to go, and what would happen if we did. The repeating symbols of the Indus Valley script, you stare at it like it's about to blink. Line after line of tiny carvings etched into soapstone, terracotta, and copper tablets. Abstract, compact, repetitive, and utterly silent. It's not a language you can hear, not one you can even fake your way through. It doesn't resemble Sanskrit or Tamil or any known Indo-European language. It doesn't care about your Rosetta Stones or your decipherment theories. It just sits there, watching, judging. This is the Indus Valley script, and it is without question one of the greatest unresolved linguistic mysteries of human civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization, or Harappan Civilization, if you're on formal terms, was one of the earliest urban societies on Earth, contemporary with Egypt and Mesopotamia between 2600 and 1900 before Common Era. They built cities with indoor plumbing, grid-patterned streets, standardized weights, multi-story homes, and a trading network that stretched from Sumeria to Gujarat. They also left behind thousands of inscriptions on seals, on pottery, on tools, on amulets, on walls. About 4,000 examples have been found to date. Some contain just a few characters. Others stretch across multiple lines. Most are bafflingly consistent, and none of them have been definitively decoded. Not one. That's not for lack of trying. Every year, some new scholar steps forward, claiming they've cracked the code. They use statistical models, artificial intelligence pattern recognition, or linguistic reverse engineering. Theories pile up. It's Proto-Dravidian. It's a logo-syllabic system. It's a rebus code. It's a ritual language. It's not a language at all, but the script remains impervious. Because, here's the twist, the script doesn't behave like anything else we've ever seen. It doesn't follow the phonetic rules of alphabets. It doesn't exhibit the character repetition of known syllabaries. It doesn't evolve over time. And the inscriptions are too short, usually 5 to 7 characters long. To apply standard decryption techniques, it's like trying to read a text message from someone who only ever types emojis. And that's one theory. Actually, that the Inda symbols weren't meant to be read aloud, but interpreted visually, that they function like ideographs, conveying entire ideas or categories rather than specific words or phonemes, kind of like traffic signs or religious icons. Not a language in the traditional sense, but a cognitive interface, which would make the Harappans not illiterate but post-literate, people who opted out of writing as we understand it. Wrap your head around that. The possibility that the oldest literate civilization on the Indian subcontinent invented a script and then used it to avoid language. Then there's the other possibility, that the script is a cipher, not a system for communication, but a code meant only for insiders. In this view, each symbol isn't a word or a syllable. It's a trigger, a mnemonic, a key to a knowledge system, passed down orally, rituals, chants, philosophical concepts. In other words, the writing doesn't say anything on its own. It's a password for the initiated, which is exactly what some Vedic traditions suggest. The Vedas were never written down for thousands of years. Their transmission was entirely oral, sonic precision passed from master to disciple. A spoken technology? If the Indus script is tied to this knowledge lineage, then it wouldn't be about syntax or grammar. It would be about access. But maybe the most disturbing possibility is the simplest: we're not supposed to understand it. Maybe the script was built to be contextual, tied to a worldview that we've completely lost. A cosmology, a ritual logic, a way of being in the world that no longer exists. The grammar of a civilization that didn't write to store data, but to tune. Let's look at the symbols. Some resemble fish, others tridents, trees, squares, circles, but they're not literal. They repeat in patterns, like motifs in a musical scale, and they often appear next to animal figures: unicorns, bulls, elephants, etched with surreal precision, often surrounded by abstract glyphs that seem to reference something deeper. What were these religious codes? Trade documents, spellbooks, maybe all of the above, maybe none, because we don't even know the sounds behind the script, which makes it technically not a lost language, but a mute one. And yet, it persists. Thousands of seals, all saying something, or maybe just thinking it. One famous seal, M414, if you're into catalog numbers, shows a humanoid figure in a yogic posture, surrounded by animals. Scholars call him the Pashupati seal, possibly the protoform of Shiva. If true, then that's the oldest known representation of yoga. Not a story, not a doctrine, a symbol designed to bypass speech. And that might be the point, that the Indus script was never meant for communication, but for activation. A semiotic switchboard, a library of sacred forms, The kind you don't read, but contemplate. The kind that changes you, not your inbox. That theory sure lines up with certain tantric philosophies, where form is vibration and meaning is secondary. A yantra isn't a diagram, it's a portal. A mantra isn't a sentence, it's a frequency. In that world, writing isn't a tool, it's a weapon, or a door, or a lock. So maybe we're approaching the Indus script all wrong, trying to read it like modern linguists, when it was built by mystics and architects and engineers of symbolic structure. A few researchers have tried looking at the seals, not as language, but as code. Binary pairs, logic gates, compressed datasets. One group even proposed the script as a genetic model, mapping symbol sequences onto biological algorithms. Sounds crazy. So does a rust-proof iron pillar? So does a temple carved downward from a mountain? So does a 24,000-year clock. And yet here we are, staring at thousands of signs that defy not only interpretation, but our very idea of what language is supposed to be. What if the Indus people were speaking to something besides each other, to the earth, to the sky, to whatever lies between vibration and silent? Because symbols don't just represent, they shape, they hold, they contain. And maybe some symbols don't want to be known? Not yet. Because what happens when we finally crack the Indus script? What happens when the silence ends? What truths come loose? What ancient trauma reboots? Maybe it's not a question of if we'll understand it, but whether we'll be able to handle what it says. Because words have power, and some languages are better left unread, especially if they speak of secrets buried not just in stone but in law, edicts that warned us where not to go and what would happen if we did. The Brahmastra weapon descriptions. Some stories are too big to be stories. They're too detailed, too literal, too wrong to be fiction. They don't behave like myths. They behave like eyewitness reports, written by people trying to explain something so far outside their comprehension that the only option was poetry. And that's exactly how the Brahmastra enters the room, not with a whisper, but with a mushroom cloud. Let's start with the basics. In the Mahabharata, one of the longest and oldest epic poems in the world, there are numerous accounts of divine weapons, celestial tools wielded by heroes and gods alike. Most are metaphorical: arrows made of fire, spears of ice, lightning bolts hurled by angry sky dwellers. Standard mythological fare. And then there's the Brahmastra. This one is different, described as the weapon of Brahma, the creator god. The Brahmastra is single-use, calyptic, and so devastating that even its users are terrified to invoke it. It is said to release a column of fire as bright as 10,000 suns, capable of burning entire cities to ash and turning the earth itself to glass. Its effects: radiation, infertility, poisoned rivers, blindness, death by invisible force. It was as if all the elements had been unleashed. Birds fell from the sky, waters boiled, elephants screamed and ran in circles. The unborn died in the womb. That's not an epic, that's a blast radius report. The Mahabharata isn't subtle about this. When the Brahmastra is used, specifically in the final war between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, the consequences are catastrophic. And when two are nearly launched at once, Krishna himself intervenes to prevent the earth from being annihilated. Because that's how dangerous this thing is. Not a weapon of battle, but a reset button. Not a missile, but an extinction-level event. Now, let's entertain a blasphemous question. What if the Brahmastra wasn't fiction? Let's say, just for a moment, that these ancient texts are not allegories, but encoded records, that the weapons described in the Mahabharata Brahmastra, Narayanastra, Agniastra, not mystical metaphors, but technologies. Then what we're reading is not mythology. It's post-apocalyptic science fiction, written in the tone of sacred history, which raises another question. Where did these weapons come from? The Mahabharata is frustratingly specific and maddeningly vague. The weapons are divine, granted through mantra, focus, and moral qualification. They are called down, not forged, but once used. They function like machines. The Brahmastra targets a specific individual or area, releases blinding light and heat, causes long-term contamination, renders regions uninhabitable for generations, can be neutralized, but only by another equally powerful counterweapon. Let's compare that to a thermonuclear bomb. Precision targeting, massive blast wave and thermal radiation, fallout that poisons land and water, genetic damage, and increased cancer risk for survivors, potential for mutual destruction. If more than one is deployed, and the most chilling alignment, the psychological burden, even in modern times, nuclear warfare is framed as unthinkable, a line you don't cross, a tool you never actually use. That exact sentiment appears in the Mahabharata again and again. The Brahmastra is not a glorious weapon, it is a curse, and even those who wield it, Arjuna, Ashwatthama, do so with hesitation. They know what it does. Or, more disturbingly, they remember, which opens a third, darker theory. What if the Brahmastra wasn't invented in the Mahabharata timeline? What if it was left over, a relic from a previous age? Something inherited, not created. A kind of mythological black box passed down from a collapsed epoch. Its function is remembered, but its origin forgotten. There's precedent for this in the text. Ancient seers speak of weapons no longer used. Ashwatthama, cursed with immortality, is said to have unleashed the Brahmastra in desperation. Not knowing how to fully control it, Krishna himself intervenes to contain its effects, not with a countermissile, but with consciousness. This isn't war, it's damage control from a technological accident. And here's the part no one talks about. India has actual archaeological sites where the soil has been fused into glass, the radiation levels are inexplicably elevated, and the surrounding areas show signs of intense heat exposure with no volcanic activity. One of the most cited examples, Mohenjo-Daro, once a thriving city of the Indus Valley civilization. Mohenjo-Daro was abandoned suddenly. Some skeletons found there show radioactive contamination beyond what's expected from natural background levels. The city layout shows signs of an explosion, epicenter walls melted, bricks vitrified. Coincidence? Maybe, or maybe not. Ancient astronaut theorists, yes, them again, suggest the Mahabharata is the memory of a planetary civil war, one fought with skycraft, vimanas, and energy-based weapons. Astra, in which the Brahmastra was a doomsday device. Even more conservative scholars admit the parallels are disturbing. Carl Sagan once referenced the Vedic texts in his lectures, noting their cosmic timelines and descriptions of technology. J. Robert Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, famously quoted the Gita after the Trinity test. "Now I am dead, the destroyer of worlds." But what he said in private is even more interesting. When asked by a student whether the first atomic bomb test was the first time such a weapon had been detonated, he replied, "Well, yes, in modern times." Modern, that one word turns the Brahmastra from fiction into possibility. And maybe that's what terrifies us most. Not that the ancients had technology, but that we're repeating their mistakes. Because every society that invents a god weapon thinks they can control it, that they're morally superior, that this time will be different, and every time, the weapon outlasts the war. So maybe the Brahmastra wasn't divine. Maybe it was left behind. A relic, a leçon, one we didn't understand the first time, one we're still trying to recreate, buried under bunkers and non-disclosure agreement classified laboratories. But here's the final twist. Some ancient texts claim that the Brahmastra wasn't just a weapon. It was a thought form, a resonance, a concentration of intention so powerful it rewrote matter. In that view, the weapon doesn't need uranium. It needs consciousness, a mind honed into a singularity, a mantra keyed to atomic collapse. That's not science fiction. That's quantum mechanics, with a scriptural twist. And it means the real weapon isn't the Astra, it's the user. So maybe the Brahmastra wasn't what we lost. Maybe it's what we're becoming. And maybe that's why some doors were sealed. Why some temples hide nothingness. Why? In one strange place in Tamil Nadu, behind a curtain, something sacred is hidden in silence. A secret they still refuse to show you. The mirror of the Mysore Palace. There's a room in the Mysore Palace they don't show you. Not on the official tour. Not on the audio guide. Not even in the whispered footnotes of your most obsessive travel blogs. It's a room hidden behind layered doors, sealed to the public, guarded not by alarms or cameras, but by absence. What's inside? A mirror. At least that's the story. A mirror that doesn't behave like one. It doesn't reflect. It doesn't break. It doesn't warp. It just shows exactly what no one agrees on. This is the story of the unbreakable mirror of Mysore, a royal artifact. So strange, so deeply unnerving, that it's been buried beneath layers of official denial and whispered recollection. There's no inventory listing, no photograph, no provenance trail, just echoes. Let's reconstruct the fragments. The legend goes like this. At some point in the late 18th or early 19th century, during the height of the Wodeyar dynasty's power, a gift arrived at the Mysore court. Some say it came from Persia. Others say it was smuggled from Tibet. Still others claim it wasn't gifted at all, but discovered, sealed in an ancient temple vault, locked behind mantras no one could translate. Whatever the source, the item was clear. A mirror unlike anything seen before, forged from an unknown alloy, surface perfectly flat, disturbingly flat, not polished metal, not glass, something else, something that didn't reflect light. So much as it absorbed awareness, people didn't see their faces in it. They saw themselves, not metaphorically, literally, not the you show the world, the other you. It was said that the mirror could see through time, that if you stare long enough, you'd catch flickers of past lives, future regrets, suppressed memories, or things not meant to be seen at all. Some palace staff went mad after glimpsing it. Others went mute. The Maharaja himself, upon looking into the mirror, reportedly withdrew from court for 9 days and returned changed. Git, skeptical, lighter somehow, as if a burden had been lifted or perhaps transferred. What did he see? He never said, but the mirror was quietly locked away soon after, and the room sealed. The official record, non-existent. The royal archivists refer to it only as Specimen 13, and even that label vanished after independence. Today, the room is there but empty on blueprints. No entry on fire maps. No ventilation. Just a sealed chamber behind a sealed chamber behind another room. No one's allowed to question. But here's the problem. Everyone remembers it differently. Some say the mirror reflected people as animals, others as corpses, others as children they never were, or gods they used to worship. Some say the mirror showed a world where you never made that one terrible mistake. Others say it showed you making worse ones. One tale claims the mirror spoke, not aloud, but directly into your mind. And what it said was always true. That's what makes it terrifying. Not that it lied, but that it didn't. Let's get weirder. Recent forensic scans of the palace, done quietly as part of earthquake-proofing renovations, revealed an anomalous heat signature in the area believed to house the mirror. The room is sealed, lightless, yet registers ambient energy emissions. Some speculate it's natural, radon decay, geothermal variance, or poorly mapped wiring. Others suggest something more exotic, that the mirror isn't just an object, it's a device designed to reflect not photons, but consciousness. What does that even mean? Let's go quantum. In certain interpretations of quantum theory, especially those involving the observer effect, Consciousness plays a role in collapsing probability into reality. Observation creates the world. Now imagine a mirror tuned not to reflect what your eyes see, but what your mind manifests. A quantum psychological feedback loop. You don't see your face, you see your collapse function, you see yourself as you truly are. Or worse, as you might have been. That would explain the reactions, the madness, the silence. Because most of us can handle lies, but the truth, RAF, unfiltered, cosmic in scale, that's the real horror. And what if the mirror was never meant for humans? What if it was part of something older, a piece of a machine, a relic from an age where self-recognition was a technology used to initiate the soul, to cleanse trauma, to reset karmic cycles, a mirror that doesn't flatter, doesn't filter, doesn't forgive, just shows. And that might explain why it was locked away. Because once seen and truly seen, you can't go back. You're either free or broken. That duality, the blade edge between liberation and lunacy, is the real power of the mirror of Mysore. And maybe the reason no one's dared move it is because it's not a mirror. It's a question, one so sharp, it cuts the illusion from the self. And once the illusion dies, you stop asking who you are. You start asking what's next. What other stories were we told that weren't stories at all? What other beings once walked among us, like that strange king from the legends? The one who left, came back, and found centuries had passed. The mirror of the Mysore Palace? There's a room in the Mysore Palace. They don't show you, not on the official tour, not on the audio guide, not even in the whispered footnotes of your most obsessive travel blogs. It's a room hidden behind layered doors, sealed to the public, guarded not by alarms or cameras, but by absence. What's inside? A mirror. At least that's the story. A mirror that doesn't behave like one. It doesn't reflect. It doesn't break. It doesn't warp. It just shows exactly what no one agrees on. This is the story of the unbreakable mirror of Mysore, a royal artifact, so strange, so deeply unnerving that it's been buried beneath layers of official denial and whispered recollection. There's no inventory listing, no photograph, no provenance trail, just echoes. Let's reconstruct the fragments. The legend goes like this. At some point in the late 18th or early 19th century, during the height of the Wodeyar dynasty's power, a gift arrived at the Mysore court. Some say it came from Persia, others say it was smuggled from Tibet. Still others claim it wasn't gifted at all, but discovered, sealed in an ancient temple vault, locked behind mantras. No one could translate. Whatever the source, the item was clear. A mirror unlike anything seen before, forged from an unknown alloy, surface perfectly flat, disturbingly flat, not polished metal, not glass, something else, something that didn't reflect light so much as it absorbed awareness. People didn't see their faces in it. They saw themselves, not metaphorically, literally, not the you show the world, the other you. It was said that the mirror could see through time, that if you stare long enough, you'd catch flickers of past lives, future regrets, suppressed memories, or things not meant to be seen at all. Some palace staff went mad after glimpsing it. Others went mute. The Maharaja himself, upon looking into the mirror, reportedly withdrew from court for 9 days and returned, changed, yet skeptical, lighter somehow, as if a burden had been lifted or perhaps transferred. What did he see? He never said, but the mirror was quietly locked away soon after, and the room was sealed. The official record non-existent. The royal archivists referred to it only as Specimen 13, and even that label vanished after independence. Today, the room is there, but empty on blueprints. No entry on fire maps. No ventilation. Just a sealed chamber behind a sealed chamber behind another room. No one's allowed to question. But here's the problem. Everyone remembers it differently. Some say the mirror reflected people as animals, others as corpses. others as children they never were, or gods they used to worship. Some say the mirror showed a world where you never made that one terrible mistake. Others say it showed you making worse ones. One tale claims the mirror spoke, not aloud but directly into your mind. And what it said was always true. That's what makes it terrifying. Not that it lied, but that it didn't. Let's get weirder. Recent forensic scans of the palace, done quietly, as part of earthquake-proofing renovations, revealed an anomalous heat signature in the area. Believed to house the mirror, the room is sealed, lightless, yet registers ambient energy emissions. Some speculate it's natural, radon decay, geothermal variance, or poorly mapped wiring. Others suggest something more exotic, that the mirror isn't just an object, it's a device designed to reflect not photons, but consciousness. What does that even mean? Let's go quantum. In certain interpretations of quantum theory, especially those involving the observer effect, consciousness plays a role in collapsing probability into reality. Observation creates the world. Now, imagine a mirror tuned not to reflect what your eyes see, but what your mind manifests. A quantum psychological feedback loop. You don't see your face. You see your collapse function. You see yourself as you truly are, or worse, as you might have been. That would explain the reactions, the madness, the silence, because most of us can handle lies. But the truth, rough, unfiltered, cosmic in scale, that's the real horror. And what if the mirror was never meant for humans? What if it was part of something older, a piece of a machine? A relic from an age where self-recognition was a technology used to initiate the soul, to cleanse trauma, to reset karmic cycles. A mirror that doesn't flatter, doesn't filter, doesn't forgive, just shows. And that might explain why it was locked away. Because once seen, and truly seen, you can't go back. You're either free or broken. That duality, the blade edge between liberation and lunacy, is the real power of the Mirror of Mysore. And maybe the reason no one's dared move it is because it's not a mirror. It's a question, one so sharp. It cuts the illusion from the self, and once the illusion dies, you stop asking who you are. You start asking, what's next? What other stories were we told that weren't stories at all? What other beings once walked among us? Like that strange king from the legends. The one who left, came back, and found centuries had passed. The time dilation legend of Kakudni. Time is supposed to move forward equally, relentlessly. It's supposed to tick like a metronome. 1 second, then another. No shipping, no slippage, no tricks. Unless, of course, you believe the story of King Kakudni, in which case time is a liar. This legend is tucked deep within the Srimad Bhagavatam, an ancient Sanskrit text, part cosmology, part theology, part psychedelic trip through time and space. It tells the story of a righteous king, Revata Kakudni, ruler of the fabled Kusastali, an ancient city said to be more advanced than the kingdoms we read about in our dusty timelines. King Kakudni had a problem. He wanted the perfect husband for his daughter, Revati. So what does he do? He doesn't swipe right. He doesn't consult priests. He goes to Brahmaloka, the celestial abode of Brahma, the god of creation, to ask the creator of the universe himself for matchmaking advice. That's already a flex. But it's what happens next that breaks every rule in your physics textbook. By the time Brahma is finished listening to Kakudni's request, he was allegedly enjoying a cosmic concert by the Gandharvas. He looks at the king and says, essentially, you're too late. In the brief moment that Kakudni spent in the higher realm, many thousands of years had passed on Earth. Entire dynasties had risen and fallen. His city was gone. His people vanished. The landscape had changed. Time, it turns out, runs differently in different realms. Brahma reassures him, tells him not to worry. tells him there's still someone left on earth who can marry Revati Balarama, brother of Krishna. So the king returns with his daughter, who, to everyone else, has been missing for millennia. But to them, it felt like minutes. This isn't just a myth. It's a textbook example of time dilation. And it gets weirder. When Revati meets Balarama, she's described as enormous, taller than the humans of the current Yuga, a remnant of an earlier age. Balarama adjusts her to fit the current epoch, shrinking her size, realigning her vibration. It's not just poetic license. It's dimensional recalibration. This story is 3,000 years old. Minimum, Einstein's theory of special relativity, which introduced time dilation as a scientific concept. The Bhagavatam beat him by 2.5 millennia, and it's not alone. Multiples anciens indiens textes describent différentiel time flow. The Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Puranas, again and again. Characters ascend to higher realms, spend moments in celestial time, and return to find centuries have passed below. A day of Brahma equals 4.32 billion human years. A night of Brahma equals another 4.32 billion years. 1 year of the gods equals 360 human years. This isn't fantasy. This is scale math, not just describing time, but how it warps across different reference frames, which raises a terrifying question. How did they know? How did Iron Age poets, without clocks or satellites or atomic references, intuit a concept that even modern physicists struggle to explain without equations? There are a few possibilities. One, it's all coincidence, purely symbolic. The ancients were just trying to express the majesty of the gods in big numbers and accidentally stumbled into cosmological truths. Sure. Two, they didn't invent it. They remembered it. From where? That's where it gets dangerous. Because if you follow that thread, you start to see the Vedic cosmology as a map, not a myth, a hierarchy of realms, each with its own time signature, gravitational density, and consciousness bandwidth, what we call dimensions. They are called lokas, what we call time dilation. They call divine perspective, and what we call lost civilizations. They described as yogic phases in which humanity rises, forgets, collapses, and then rises again. So what happened to Kukudmi's kingdom? Where is Kusastali now? Some say it became Dwarka, Krishna's golden city. Others say it's under the sea. Still others believe Kukudmi was never human at all. That the story is allegorical. Yes, but not for love or duty. For displacement. For what happens when someone steps outside the timeline and then returns. Modern physics has started inching toward these same questions. In 1971, the Hafele-Keating experiment flew atomic clocks around the Earth on jet planes. They lost time. Exactly as relativity predicted. Time is not constant. Time bends. And once you accept that, all bets are off. Suddenly, Kukudmi's story isn't a fairy tale. It's a lab report. And if ancient sages knew about time dilation, what else did they know about energy, about dimensional bleed, about reality as a flexible interface, not a fixed construct? Because when you strip away the incense and chant, the story of Kukudmi is just this. A man went somewhere higher. He came back different. The world was unrecognizable, and he could never return, which feels eerily familiar. Like maybe we've all done it before, and maybe in those forbidden places Ashoka warned us about. Time still loops sideways. And somewhere, someone is still tracking all of this silently from above. Maybe they're not just watching. Maybe they're still flying. The yantras found in ancient temples, they lie under your feet, carved into stone floors, hidden in sanctums, inked on copper plates, tucked beneath idols, etched where no one bothers to look, because most people walk into temples expecting gods, not machines. But that's what yantras are, not metaphors, not ornaments, machines, not in the clanking, gear spinning, steam hissing sense, but in a far stranger, more disturbing way. Because these ancient diagrams weren't meant to be seen, they were meant to work. Let's break it down. A yantra is a geometric figure, usually made up of intersecting triangles, circles, and lotus petals, arranged in precise mathematical proportion. You've seen the Sri Yantra. Even if you didn't know what it was, a cascade of triangles forming a symmetry so perfect, it makes your nervous system twitch. But what you probably didn't know is that these aren't just spiritual symbols. In Indian temple architecture and tantric ritual, yantras are functional devices, each one calibrated to do something: protect, amplify, heal, invoke, activate. They're not just images, they're interfaces. Now, here's the part that twists your brain. Yantras are often placed in hidden locations, inside temples, beneath sanctums, under shivalingas, or within foundational stones. They're not meant for public display. You don't pray to them. You don't even really see them. You walk over them. You stand on them. And that's not a bug. That's the feature. Because yantras aren't meant to be worshipped. They're meant to affect space, to modify the energy of a place, the way a tuning fork alters sound in a room. They're part vibration map, part cosmic circuits, and part psychic tool. The agamas, ancient Sanskrit manuals on temple construction, are obsessively specific about this. They prescribe which yantra goes where, at what depth, in what material, at what planetary hour, facing which direction. One wrong angle, and the whole system is compromised. Which raises the question: system? What system? Well, let's talk about temples. Most Indian temples are built not as symbolic structures, but as energy machines, designed to create, store, and transmit specific frequencies. The central sanctum, or garbhagriha, is the energy core. The idol is the conduit. The yantra beneath it is the processor. Now think about that. Ancient engineers were creating vibration-modulating environments using architectural resonance, mantra-based activation, and buried diagrams that still make mathematicians sweat. Take the Sri Yantra. When mapped in 3 dimensions, it forms a hyperspatial lattice, a kind of energy pyramid constructed from interlocking tetrahedrons. Its radios are non-Euclidean. Its alignments are impossible to freehand, and yet it appears accurately carved into temple floors from Tamil Nadu to Odisha. One physicist called it the mathematical fingerprint of consciousness. Another said it resembled quantum interference patterns. Others have noted that the angles in the Sri Yantra align with acoustic standing wave patterns, suggesting it wasn't just drawn, it was heard, and then carved into stone. Now add this: certain yantras are made with metal alloys, sealed in ritual, and buried at geologically resonant points, places where the Earth's magnetic field fluctuates, or where underground water channels cross, which means someone, thousands of years ago, knew about geomagnetic fields, vibrational nodes, and subsurface resonance. We just gave them incense and called it religion. Here's another one. The Kurma Yantra, Tortoiseshapt, said to stabilize tectonic energy, placed under temples in earthquake-prone zones. No idea how they knew it worked, but it does. Or the Bala Yantra, associated with psychic shielding, often buried beneath cremation grounds, converted into temple spaces. Coincidence? Not likely. There are hundreds of these, and no one knows who invented them. They're just there, passed down through palm leaf manuscripts, whispered into the ears of initiates, preserved, not as blueprints, but as rituals. Because here's the kicker: yantras don't function alone. They require sound. Each one is activated through specific mantras, vocal frequencies that cause the stone or metal or even the air above them to vibrate in a precise way. When chanted correctly, the yantra wakes up. The diagrams don't do the work. They coordinate it. Like wiring, like code, like an ancient operating system built from sacred geometry and acoustic resonance. Now imagine the implications. If yantras are real, functional, not decorative, then temples aren't just places of worship. They're machines, acoustic generators, reality stabilizers, energy transformers, maybe even portals. That's what some tantric texts hint at. That specific yantras, when activated in conjunction with mantra, mudra, and time alignment, can produce states of consciousness not normally accessible, or even locations not normally reachable. We're not saying stargates, but we're also not saying stargates, because once you accept that sacred geometry can influence biology, consciousness, and space itself, you start wondering what the ancients were trying to access and what happened when they did. Maybe that's why some yantras were destroyed, why certain temples were desecrated, their sanctums dug out, their foundation stones removed, not just to erase religion, but to disable a system. And maybe that's why, in some temples, you still feel it. That thrum in the air, that impossible stillness, that tension in your skin when you cross the threshold. The yantra is still there, still waiting, still pulsing. A silent, invisible map under your feet, whispering in a language no one speaks anymore, except maybe the stone. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the ancients were building toward. Not walls, not gods, but a way to hold space, to contain something that didn't die, something that couldn't die, only disappear. Or wait, like a saint sealed in shadow, breathing still, the sealed saint of Rosabal. Some tombs are quiet because the dead are done talking. Others are quiet because the dead still know too much. Nestled in the heart of Srinagar in Kashmir, just off a noisy market street, where tourists haggle over saffron and prayer beads, stands a modest building, small, white, unassuming. You'd walk past it unless you knew. It's called Rosabal. It claims to be a maqbara, a Muslim shrine. Inside, there's a wooden chamber, and inside that, a stone sarcophagus covered in green cloth, surrounded by wooden lattices, and a sense of unearned stillness. Locals will tell you it's the tomb of Usasaf, a sage from the West who came to Kashmir, healed the sick, preached peace, and died here. Some call him a prophet, others a wandering mystic, and others say Usasaf was Jesus Christ. Yes, that Jesus, not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally, crucified in Jerusalem, survived, escaped, traveled east with his followers, preached in Persia, settled in India, lived, aged, died, buried, not in a cave in Judea, but in the cool earth of northern India, under a shrine that still stands. It's one of the most explosive claims in comparative religion, and one of the most obsessively avoided, because if it's true, it would unravel centuries of theological infrastructure. Christianity, Islam, even certain interpretations of Buddhism would crack open like an overripe pomegranate. So, let's ask what exactly is in Rosabal. Let's talk about physical evidence. The tomb is oriented east-west, unusual for a Muslim burial, which traditionally faces Mecca, but it's consistent with Jewish burial customs. There's a pair of feet carved in stone, preserved next to the sarcophagus. The soles show crucifixion wounds, specifically marks that appear to indicate nails driven through the sides of the feet rather than the front, which, according to some forensic reconstructions, is a more structurally plausible method of crucifixion. Coincidence? Maybe. But there's more. The name Us-Asaf appears in multiple ancient texts: Persian, Kashmiri, and Tibetan. In the Tariq-i-Kashmir, a 16th century Persian chronicle, Us-Asaf is described as a foreign prophet who settled in Srinagar. After traveling extensively, he healed with touch, preached love, spoke of a kingdom not of this world. Sound familiar? In the Bhavishya Purana, a Sanskrit text whose authorship and dating are still hotly debated. There's an even more chilling mention. It describes a holy man named Isa Masih, Jesus the Messiah, meeting with King Shalivahana of India and identifying himself as the son of a virgin born in the West and persecuted by his own people. Then there's the Tibetan scrolls. Nicholas Notovich, a Russian explorer in the 19th century, claimed to have found manuscripts in the Hemis Monastery in Ladakh describing the life of Saint Isa, a foreign-born teacher who studied with Buddhists and Hindus before returning west to preach, only to be executed and later escape. Notovich was dismissed as a crank until other researchers independently claimed to have seen similar texts. Then the manuscripts disappeared, sealed, moved, or maybe just unavailable. Just like Rosabal itself, in the early 2000s, a sudden burst of interest, mostly from fringe theorists, documentary crews, and rogue historians, prompted the site's custodians to seal the tomb, literally, with chains and locks. No access to the inner chamber. No more photos. No more theories. The official reason, out of respect. The unofficial reason, panic. Because whether or not Uz Asaf was Jesus, the evidence started pointing to someone who didn't fit our timelines. A healer, a preacher, a traveler, a man with buried knowledge. And Kashmir, already a powder keg of politics and prophecy, was not ready to host the second coming, or the first one's retirement villa. But let's ask a better question. What if Rosabal is just the tip of the grave? What if there are more tombs like this scattered across India sites that don't fit? Saints that aren't accounted for? Ruins that belong to people who weren't supposed to be here? What if the Vedic world, the Buddhist world, and the Judeo-Christian world overlapped more than we think? Not because of war, not because of the empire, but because they came from the same source. One world, many stories, and some of the characters walk between them. And maybe that's what Rosabal really is. Not a tomb, a bookmark in a story someone's trying to forget. Or maybe it's not a burial at all. Maybe it's a seal, because there's another legend in Kashmir, half erased, that Uz Asaf never died, that his body remains incorrupt, untouched by time, waiting, breathing. Some say he lies in suspended animation. Some say the tomb is empty. And some say it isn't a tomb at all, but a gate. Which brings us back to the same terrible, beautiful question behind every mystery on this list. What if they never left? What if they're just waiting for us to wake up? To notice the signs, to feel the vibration in stone, to hear the silence that isn't silence. Because if Rosabal is real, if even a fraction of it is real, then resurrection isn't the miracle, it's the protocol, the synchronized pillars of Lapakshi. From a distance, Lapakshi looks like a forgotten postcard, a dusty hilltop in Andhra Pradesh, half swallowed by time, crowned with sandstone spires and elephant motifs, a sleepy temple town ignored by the modern world, except for a few history buffs and the occasional spiritual tourist. But step inside the Veerabhadra Temple, and you enter a space that doesn't behave like it was built by hand. It behaves like it was engineered, meticulously, deliberately, with a level of mechanical logic so unsettling, it forces a second glance. Because this isn't just sacred geometry, it's kinetic architecture. Welcome to the mystery of the hanging pillar. A stone column, suspended a hair's breadth above the temple floor, never quite touching it, never quite explaining itself. And it's not a party trick. It's a structural anomaly. There are over 70 stone pillars in the hall, all weight-bearing, all aligned to balance centuries of stone ceiling. But one of them, the Akasha Stamba, or hanging pillar, doesn't touch the ground. Slide a cloth underneath it. Watch it pass through. Try to explain it. You can't. And neither can structural engineers, because no matter how many surveys, scans, or simulations are done, the pillar remains impossibly suspended, defying gravity, friction, and basic tectonics. It is not floating, it is load-bearing. And that is exactly what makes it terrifying. Let's rewind. The temple was built in the 16th century during the Vijayanagara Empire. Known for its extravagantly detailed temples and brutalist grandeur, local legend says it was constructed in a single day by the celestial architect Vishwakarma's descendants. But that doesn't explain the precision alignment of stone elements, not just walls and domes, but résonance surface, énergie channels, and, most disturbingly, vibration-canceling corridor spaces where sound abruptly dies mid-echo, as if swallowed by some acoustic predator. And the hanging pillar, it's not alone. Researchers have noted that many of the pillars at Lapakshi are symmetrically synchronized. When tapped gently, they resonate at matched frequencies. Some theorists believe the pillars operate as a harmonic grid, a system of standing waves engineered into the stone, designed not just to support structure, but to modulate vibration. Why? Maybe to amplify ritual sound, maybe to stabilize the region's intense geomagnetic fluctuations, maybe to contain something, or maybe they're not amplifying anything at all. Maybe they're canceling it. Think tuning fork versus noise-canceling headphones? A destructive interference pattern engineered into architecture that nullifies specific frequencies, like the hum of seismic waves, or the subtle energies produced by objects or entities that shouldn't be here. And that brings us back to the hanging pillar. Because here's the thing, it shouldn't work. Stone structures rely on contact points. Weight needs to be distributed vertically. But this pillar appears to levitate, holding up tons of granite from above, while its base hovers over empty space. Some say it was damaged during British surveys. But there's no chipping, no smudging, no cracking, just absence. It's like the base was intentionally disconnected, like a switch in a circuit that was meant to be left open. Or maybe it's the ground that moved. Maybe the pillar stayed still, and the rest of reality shifted around it. Because here's the other thing no one wants to talk about. The floor beneath the pillar is depressed, a smooth indentation, as if the ground once pressed upward, then recoiled, like a pressure valve that released, or a memory that triggered and then vanished. And what is Lapakshi Temple? Yes, but also a map. Its layout mirrors the human body, like Chidambaram. Its murals depict not just gods and dancers, but celestial mechanics. There's a giant footprint in the floor, attributed to Hanuman, out of proportion, as if left by something much larger, something that might have stood here, looked up, and then left or fell. The temple's name even tells a story. Lapakshi in Telugu means rise. O bird, legend has it that Jatayu, the divine eagle from the Ramayana, fell here after battling Ravana. Rama, upon finding the dying creature, whispered those words, Lapakshi, rise. But what if it's not just about a bird? What if that line, rise, O bird, wasn't a blessing? What if it was a command? What if this temple wasn't built to remember something sacred, but to hold down something that tried to fly away? That's what the hanging pillar might be. Not a flaw, a seal, a reminder that something once rose here, and something else tried to stop it. Maybe the entire temple is a crash site or a containment system, a grid of stone frequencies designed to stabilize a rupture in reality, because that's what the ancient architects did best. They didn't just build, they calibrated. Temples weren't expressions of faith. They were technologies of containment, and sometimes they had to do more than echo the gods. They had to hold them back. So, if one pillar is hanging, maybe it's not the only thing suspended. Maybe something else is waiting under the floor. Inside the resonance, just on the other side of frequency, a being, a memory, a machine, or a god who no longer dances. He listens, and one day, if the vibration changes, he rises, the iron pillar that refuses to rust. It stands there quietly, mocking the modern world, In the middle of Delhi's Qutub complex, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, known mostly for its towering minaret, there's something even taller in implication. If not in height, a modest, slender iron pillar, about 7 meters tall, unadorned, undecorated, and completely at odds with the oxygen-rich atmosphere around it, because it hasn't rusted. Not in 1600 years. No corrosión, no flaking, no structural decay. Just an ancient metallurgical miracle sitting in plain sight, while nearby steel railings, installed in the 1990s, already show spots of orange death. It's called the Iron Pillar of Delhi, but it might as well be called the middle finger of ancient India, waved at every metallurgist, chemist, and material scientist still trying to explain how it exists, and, more unnervingly, why. Let's get into it. Conservatively dated to the 4th century Common Era, though some argue it's much older. The Iron Pillar was originally erected in central India and later transported to its current home. It bears a Sanskrit inscription in Brahmi script, attributing it to King Chandragupta II, a ruler of the Gupta dynasty. It's composed of 99.72% wrought iron, which should have corroded within a few hundred years, especially in Delhi's monsoon-prone climate, and yet it hasn't. It has weathered acid rain, pollution, dust storms, humidity, and the oily fingerprints of millions of curious tourists, and still no rust. Why, theories abound. Some say it's due to the high phosphorus content and absence of sulfur and manganese, giving rise to a protective passivation layer, a microscopic barrier that repels moisture and oxidation. Others point to forge welding techniques and unique ancient smelting processes lost to history. But here's the twist. Modern replications of these methods still don't produce the same anti-corrosive effect, which raises a darker possibility that we're not missing the method, we're missing the context. Because the Iron Pillar isn't alone, similar corrosion-resistant iron artifacts have been found in Dar, Mandu, Kodachadri, and, most eerily, in Bhaktapur, Nepal, where a rust-free trident still gleams atop a temple roof centuries after its installation. Something was going on, either a lost science of metallurgy or something even stranger. Let's consider the pillar as a device, not an artifact. Its shape cylindrical, perfectly symmetrical, acoustically resonant. Its positioning aligned with the celestial meridian. Its function, that's where it gets speculative. Some Vedic texts describe dvaja stambhas, pillar-like structures, erected at sacred sites to act as energy conductors, connecting earth to sky, not symbolic conductors, literal ones. The Iron Pillar may have functioned as an electromagnetic stabilizer, a kind of ancient tuning rod for the atmosphere's subtle charge. Ancient temples and observatories were often designed around geomagnetic nodes, and the placement of metallic structures at these nodes could have served purposes we've long forgotten, enhancing cognitive clarity during rituals, channeling atmospheric electricity into the ground during cosmic events, shielding against environmental energetic disruptions. In other words, not a monument, a tool. And here's where things cross the threshold from who? Interesting. To, oh God, what else have we lost? The Iron Pillar has been struck by lightning, documented several times. It never split. It never shattered. It absorbed the current and remained standing, which makes some believe it was designed to do that, to act as a conductor, not for electricity alone, but for something subtler consciousness. Perhaps mantra frequency, maybe, or even as a grounding device for entities or energies once channeled at that site. What if the Iron Pillar isn't just proof of advanced metallurgy? What if it's evidence of an interface, a way the ancients spoke to the sky? Now consider the inscription. It doesn't boast about its craftsmanship. It praises Vishnu, the preserver of the universe, and speaks of the pillar's eternal durability, its unshakable standing. It was meant to last forever, Not because it's sacred, but because it had to. There are whispers, never published, always denied, about magnetic anomalies near the pillar, compass déviation, strange animal behavior. Some say their phones glitch when standing beside it. Some say they've heard humming when the wind hits just right. Maybe these are urban legends. Or maybe we're listening to a machine that's still humming after 1600 years, waiting for someone to remember the password, because this isn't the only structure that refuses to degrade. There are temples carved from mountaintops, still aligned to solstices, yantras buried under shrines, still active, scripts etched on copper, still legible, and maybe, just maybe, a pillar that stands between ages, acting as a marker for those who knew that everything corrodes except the truth. And the truth is this: the iron pillar shouldn't exist, and yet it does, which begs the question, who built it? And what else did they leave behind? Maybe a gate, maybe a seal, maybe a memory disguised as metal. Because in ancient India, the gods didn't descend from the sky. Sometimes they just walked in. The sacred geometry of Hampi, Earth's blueprint. They say Hampi is a ruin. They say it's a city of stones, toppled temples, fractured idols, ancient dreams crumbling under sun and time. But Hampi isn't ruined. Hampi is encrypted. Because once you stop looking at its structures and start looking at their relationships, the angles, alignments, espacial ratios, and astronomical fixed points, you realize something disturbing. Hampi wasn't built, it was plotted, located in Karnataka, South India, and once the capital of the mighty Vijayanagara Empire. Hampi is a surreal sprawl of boulders, shrines, monolithic sculptures, stepped tanks, and temples that seem more grown than constructed. But here's the mystery that refuses to die. Hampi matches sacred geometry, not in one temple. In all of it, across 4,000 monuments spread over 25 square kilometers, an invisible grid ties them together, a map of energy lines, a web of angles derived not from urban planning, but cosmic mathematics. The whole city is laid out like a yantra, an earth-sized mandala, readable only when viewed as a single object. And at the heart of that geometry sits a name that no one can explain: Vitala. The Vitala Temple complex is Hampi's crown jewel, famous for its musical pillars, pillars that ring like tuned chimes when struck, and its stone chariot, a supposedly immovable monolith that vibrates under specific chants. But the real miracle isn't the sound, it's the silence between the structures. Every pillar, every shrine, every column is placed in ratios that correspond with musical intervals, not accidentally, deliberately. The whole site is a harmonic engine, built to conduct sound, light, and human consciousness, like it's an instrument. Now, ask yourself, who thinks like that? Who designs a city as if it were a song? Modern archaeologists explain it away as aesthetic alignment, a byproduct of devotional architecture. But sacred geometry doesn't care about aesthetics. It cares about frequency. At Hampi, that frequency isn't metaphorical. The temples are aligned with celestial movements. On solstices and equinoxes, shadows fall at impossible angles. Moonlight floods sanctums that remain dark the rest of the year. And the stone chariot, it's not a chariot, it's a tuning chamber, a resonant sculpture placed on a ley line. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. The whole city seems to track something that's no longer here. Inscriptions, broken statues, fragments of lore referencing events and beings that predate the Vijayanagara Empire by millennia. Stories of flying cities, invisible weapons, gateways to higher realms, and cosmic wars fought not in the sky, but in geometry. Hampi isn't a capital, it's a memory palace. And at its core lies the Pushkarani step tank, so perfectly symmetrical, it makes modern computer-aided design engineers nervous. Its dimensions match Fibonacci ratios. Its echo returns at intervals of pi, Sound tests reveal standing wave harmonics. And no one knows who built it. Not really. The locals say the tank is a mirror for the sky, but others say it's a mandala, a fractal simulation of larger geometries. Some believe it maps the Earth's magnetic field. Others think it's a star chart, showing the position of constellations during an ancient convergence event, one that hasn't happened yet or already did. Because buried beneath Hampi is a far older tradition, one that speaks of the yuga cycles, of chakra alignment, of planetary harmonics encoded into architecture. Hampi's layout mirrors not just a yantra, but a kundalini map. It's a city built like a spine, with energy point chakras marked by temples. From the Anjanadri Hill, Muladhara, to the Vitala Temple, Sahasrara, the journey across the ruins becomes a walk through consciousness itself. That's not city planning. That's dimensional engineering. So, who built Hampi Vijayanagara kings? Or were they just restorers? Did they inherit something? Find something, complete something. Because here's what no one talks about. Hampi was abandoned suddenly. Despite its grandeur, its wealth, its spiritual significance, something forced its people to leave. No slow decay, just gone. Some blame the Deccan Sultanates. Others point to astronomical anomalies, drought cycles, geomagnetic events. Or maybe the city served its purpose and was never meant to last. Just like a yantra drawn in sand before a ritual, meant to guide a moment, then erased before the next. Here's what remains: a temple whose pillars still sing, though no one knows why. A map that shows not cities, but chakras. A memory of something that vibrated, not in space, but in pattern. And a silence that grows louder the longer you listen. Because Hampi isn't just built on sacred ground. Hampi is sacred ground. Sacred, not because gods once walked there, but because they might come back, or maybe they never left. Maybe they're still in the stones. Still humming, still sinking to something that hasn't happened yet, but is already on its way. Just like the sound you hear before the bell rings. Not nuaz. Alignment, and you're standing in the middle of it. The unmoving Shiva Linga of Gavi Gangadhareshwara. It sits in the dark, inside a kavi, surrounded by stone and shadow and a silence thick enough to swallow your name. You don't find the Gavi Gangadhareshwara temple. It finds you, carved directly into a monolithic rock formation in the heart of modern-day Bengaluru. This ancient temple looks like something that formed naturally and then remembered. It was divine. No flamboyant architecture, no towering gopura, just a system of tunnels, pillars, and a Shiva Linga that won't move, can't move, and shouldn't. Because here's the mystery. Once a year, on Makara Sankranti, sometime in mid-January, a single beam of sunlight snakes its way through the temple's front arch, threads itself through two narrow window slits, and lands directly on the central linga, illuminating it for just a few minutes. No lights, no mirrors, no edits, just the sun, the stone, and something the ancients built without global positioning system, lasers, or architectural software. Try to replicate it today. You won't. Because this isn't alignment, it's precision programming. Let's get into it. The temple dates back at least to the 9th century Common Era, though some claim it's even older. Built by pre-Vedic sages who lived underground, away from cosmic events and social collapse. It's carved from a single piece of stone, creating a complex cave system that aligns to celestial events with unnatural accuracy. But the real mystery is the linga. A Shiva Linga is traditionally symbolic, non-anthropomorphic, representing divine stillness, the seed of creation. But this one, it's implanted. Geologists who've studied it believe the linga wasn't placed there. It emerged from the rock. It's the same material, continuous with the cave. Not inserted, not chiseled. It's as if the rock itself decided to become Shiva. And here's where it gets stranger. Multiple attempts to measure, extract, or even photograph the base of the linga have failed. There are no seams, no shadows, no tool marks. The linga simply is, which begs the question, is it a symbol or is it alive? Ancient temple lore refers to Svayambhu lingas, lingas that are self-born, not sculpted, energetic nodes where consciousness condenses into matter. Modern physics might call that a singularity, a standing wave, a breach in the fabric where form emerges from the formless. So maybe it's not that the linga can't be moved. Maybe it's that it's anchoring something of vibration, a memory, a machine, and the sunlight. It's not a celebration, it's a ping, a once-a-year activation signal, a celestial okay that tells the system the earth is still turning, the temple is still in sync, and whatever's beneath the linga is still sealed. Because, yes, there are rumors of tunnels, of chambers, of a circular passage beneath the linga that loops endlessly, unless entered on the correct day, with the correct mantra, in the correct vibrational state. Sound familiar? It should. Because this is Portal Engineering 101. Align the physical with the celestial, embed the gate in something unmoving, and tie its activation to a star clock. No one remembers how to read until someone accidentally does. There's more. The temple features 4 monolithic pillars, believed to represent the solar system's 4 major timekeepers: Sunday, Moon, Earth, and Saturn. Saturn, the slowest, the densest, the most feared. In Vedic astrology, Saturn, Shani, is the planet of karmic rebalancing. It doesn't destroy, it reveals. And that might be the whole function of the temple, not to worship, to reveal. Once a year, the temple shows you the light, literally, the beam, the linga, the convergence, and the rest of the year, it waits. Because Gavi Gangadhareshwara isn't a place of ritual, it's a clock, a countdown, a location that tracks something we forgot, something cosmic, cyclic, and inevitable, and that something might be under the linga, still sealed, still sleeping, still sinking, because the ancients weren't just praying here, they were programming, they were tuning space to time, stone to star, silence to memory, and they left us the device, but not the manual. So we watch the sunbeam hit the stone once a year, and we think it's beautiful. We don't realize it's a check-in, a cosmic password, one that still works, and the question we never ask is what happens when it doesn't. The 7 submerged pagodas of Mahabalipuram. Most people go to Mahabalipuram for the stone carvings, the monolithic temples, the seaside breeze, the giant bas-relief known as Arjuna's penance that seems to ripple with stone-born dreams. Tourists take selfies, pilgrims offer prayers, but no one's really looking, not out at sea, not down into the water, because the greatest mystery of Mahabalipuram isn't on land, it's underneath it. According to legend, the famous shore temple we see today, perched dramatically at the edge of the Bay of Bengal, is just the tip of something much larger, a fragment, a survivor. The ancient Tamil texts say there were once 7 pagodas, 7 magnificent temples built in a perfect line along the coast, glowing so brightly in the sun that even the gods turned their heads. And now only one remains. The other 6 were allegedly swallowed by the sea. Everyone assumed it was a myth, until 2004, when the Indian Ocean tsunami struck. The sea receded briefly, horrifically, exposing something no one expected: stone structures submerged a few hundred feet offshore, with carvings, steps, and walls that match the architectural style of Mahabalipuram. Local fishermen had spoken about them for generations. Structures where no boat should pass. Most assumed they were telling stories. They weren't. Archaeologists rushed in divers, sonar mapping, ground-penetrating radar, and there it was. A submerged complex stretching under the ocean floor. consistent with 8th century temple construction, possibly much older, alignments that matched the sun, pillars with lion carvings, floors that had never been walked on by anyone alive. Only, no one talks about what they really found, because some of the carvings were different, unfinished, asymmetrical, fused with coral in ways that defied marine biology timelines. And some of the shapes weren't temples. Some of the sonar maps revealed perfectly circular chambers joined by thin corridors, not consistent with any known Pallava dynasty architecture, not consistent with any known surface architecture, but eerily consistent with subterranean systems or pre-flood structures. Here's where it gets darker. Tamil law, passed down by temple priests and fishermen, claims that the 7 pagodas were built to anchor something beneath them. Not a god, not a relic, a serpent, not metaphorically. They speak of a being par énergie, part consciousness. Chained beneath the sea, the temples weren't built to honor it. They were built to hold it down. Every temple was a node, a lock. And when the 6th temple fell, the shoreline changed. The tides began to shift, and the ocean came for the 7th. The shore temple isn't sacred because it's old. It's sacred because it's the last seal still working. Look at the site from above. Modern drone scans show a strange geometry to the underwater structures. They follow a spiral, not a line. Each pagoda was part of a circuit, a yantra, and at the center, a depression in the ocean floor. They say it's natural. It doesn't look natural. It looks like something once rose or sank. The temples were built to keep it stable. But here's the question. No one wants to ask, why build 7 temples knowing they would be swallowed, unless the architects knew the sea would come? Unless they were building against time, against cycles, against something that comes in waves. There's a deeper legend, never written, only spoken, passed in the hush of temple corridors, that the original 7 weren't built by humans at all. They were revealed to humans, cut into existence by a single beam of sound projected from a star vehicle hovering over the ocean, that the structures were vibrated into being, not built, that they function not as places of worship, but as resonance stabilizers to keep Earth's energy grid in alignment. And when the grid is misaligned, things wake up, which brings us back to the tsunami. What else did it uncover? That day, some say divers found a second tier of structures deeper down, buried, melted, cut with precision tools. Not even our modern engineers understand. Others say the Indian government classified the scans, said it was a cultural heritage zone, sealed off, no further diving permitted, because maybe it wasn't just ruins. Maybe it was evidence of a pre-Ice Age civilization, of a global grid, of something that once lived beneath the 7 pagodas, and might again. The temple still stands for now, but the shoreline erodes more every year, and the waves are getting louder, because 1 seal is a monument, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a machine, and 7 is a prison. And when 6 have fallen, you don't ask if the last one will collapse. You ask when. And what happens after? The hidden codex of Bhandarkar Institute. There are archives filled with silence, shelves that hum with the weight of stories no one is allowed to read. And deep in the city of Pune, behind red-bricked walls and colonial quiet, sits one of the most guarded repositories of ancient Indian knowledge, the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, BORI. If you know the acronym, and if you're the kind of person who knows to whisper it, founded in 1917, BORI was meant to be an academic hub, a public institut for Sanskrit texts, rare palm leaf manuscripts, copper plate inscriptions, Vedic commentaries, and cultural preservation. But that's not all it is, because somewhere within its temperature-controlled vaults, behind the glass cases and polite tour groups, lies a manuscript so old, so strange, and so potentially dangerous that even scholars don't like to speak about it aloud. They call it the Brahma Janana Codex. The codex isn't officially listed in any catalog. It doesn't sit in the public reading room. Most people at the Institute have never seen it. And yet, for over 50 years, references to this mysterious document have been whispered through insider circles, always in vague, nervous terms. Here's what we know. The Codex is written in a language that is not quite Sanskrit, not Pali, not Tamil, or something older. Some say it's Vatteluttu, a Proto-South Indian script used for esoteric inscriptions. Others say it's unknown entirely. It's not even on the Unicode charts. The script flows in spirals, not lines. It wraps around itself. Paragraphs that circle like a mandala, sentences that require physical rotation of the leaf to read. No punctuation, no page numbers, just symbols that seem to respond to the direction of light. You read it wrong. It reads you back. The Codex was first discovered during a cleanup of a collapsed archive in the 1960s, an unmarked bundle wrapped in silk, hidden inside a larger manuscript on ritual astronomy. Inside were 13 leaves of darkened palm fiber, etched so finely the grooves could only be seen under grazing angle light. Scholars who tried to translate it reported strange symptoms: sleep paralysis, auditory hallucinations, precognitive dreams, extrême, déjà vu. One researcher, Dr. Kumar Dutt, reportedly burned his entire collection of notes after transcribing only 4 pages. Then he disappeared. No forwarding address, no resignation letter, just a gap. And this was not one of those vague, spooky manuscript urban legends. This happened. Bori has since refused to acknowledge the Codex's existence, but leaks persist, whispered academic papers. References and footnotes that cite unpublished VJ-class leaf bundles. The most persistent theory, the Codex contains a mechanical model of consciousness, not philosophy, not metaphor. Mechanics, a system of sound, breath, geometry, and will, combined into a formula that allows human thought to interact with external reality in real time, like code, like an operating system, not prayer, execution. And if that's true, the Codex may be the only surviving fragment of a pre-Vedic science that treated the self as an engine. It doesn't describe deities. It describes interfaces, diagrams of circuits made not from wires, but from mantras and mudras, breath rhythms that open neural resonance fields, phrases that edit internal states, pages that teach you how to recompile yourself. Here's the kicker. Some of the Codex glyphs match those found on Indus Valley seals. Exactly. Not similar. Exactly. Which shouldn't be possible because, according to history, the Indus script is undeciphered and has no known connection to Vedic or post-Vedic languages. But if the Codex bridges that gap, then it's not just a manuscript. It's the missing link between India's greatest ancient civilization and its mystical aftermath. And maybe that's why it was hidden, because if the Codex is real, if it really does contain a technology of self-aware consciousness, then we're no longer dealing with literature. We're dealing with a user manual for reality, a key, a weapon, a cure, or a trigger. And what happens if someone figures out how to use it? What happens if it falls into the wrong hands? Or the right ones at the wrong time? Maybe that's why Bori keeps denying its existence. Not to erase it, but to buy us time. Because some truths aren't meant to be shared until the listener is ready, until the resonance is right, until the voice inside the leaf awakens. So if you ever find yourself inside Bori and you hear a vibration coming from a room, no one enters. Don't follow it, not unless you're willing to remember everything. Because knowledge is a door, and some doors lock from the inside. The 7 submerged pagodas of Mahabalipuram. Most people go to Mahabalipuram for the stone carvings, the monolithic temples, the seaside breeze, the giant bas-relief known as Arjuna's penance that seems to ripple with stone-born dreams. Tourists take selfies. Pilgrims offer prayers. But no one's really looking, not out at sea, not down into the water. Because the greatest mystery of Mahabalipuram isn't on land, it's underneath it. According to legend, the famous shore temple we see today, perched dramatically at the edge of the Bay of Bengal, is just the tip of something much larger, a fragment. A survivor, the ancient Tamil texts say there were once 7 pagodas, 7 magnificent temples built in a perfect line along the coast, glowing so brightly in the sun that even the gods turned their heads. And now only one remains. The other 6 were allegedly swallowed by the sea. Everyone assumed it was a myth, until 2004, when the Indian Ocean tsunami struck. The sea receded briefly, horrifically, exposing something no one expected. Stone structures submerged a few hundred feet offshore, with carvings, steps, and walls that matched the architectural style of Mahabalipuram. Local fishermen had spoken about them for generations. Structures where no boat should pass. Most assumed they were telling stories. They weren't. Archaeologists rushed in diverse sonar mapping, ground-penetrating radar, and there it was. A submerged complex stretching under the ocean floor, consistent with 8th century temple construction, possibly much older, alignments that matched the sun, pillars with lion carvings, floors that had never been walked on by anyone alive. Only, no one talks about what they really found, because some of the carvings were different, unfinished, asymmetrical, fused with coral in ways that defied marine biology timelines, and some of the shapes weren't temples. Some of the sonar maps revealed perfectly circular chambers, joined by thin corridors, not consistent with any known Pallava dynasty architecture, not consistent with any known surface architecture, but eerily consistent with subterranean systems or pre-flood structures. Here's where it gets darker. Tamil, passed down by temple priests and fishermen, claims that the 7 pagodas were built to anchor something beneath them, not a god, not a relic, a serpent, not metaphorically. They speak of a being, part energy, part consciousness, chained beneath the sea. The temples weren't built to honor it, they were built to hold it down. Every temple was a node, a lok, and when the 6th temple fell, the shoreline changed, the tides began to shift, and the ocean came for the 7th. The shore temple isn't sacred because it's old. It's sacred because it's the last seal still working. Look at the site from above. Modern drone scans show a strange geometry to the underwater structures. They follow a spiral, not a line. Each pagoda was part of a circuit, a yantra, and at the center, a depression in the ocean floor. They say it's natural. It doesn't look natural. It looks like something once rose or sank. The temples were built to keep it stable. But here's the question. No one wants to ask, why build 7 temples knowing they would be swallowed? Unless the architects knew the sea would come. Unless they were building against time, against cycles, against something that comes in waves. There's a deeper legend, never written, only spoken, passed in the hush of temple corridors, that the original 7 weren't built by humans at all. They were revealed to humans, cut into existence by a single beam of sound projected from a star vehicle hovering over the ocean, that the structures were vibrated into being, not built, that they function not as places of worship, but as resonance stabilizers, to keep Earth's energy grid in alignment. And when the grid is misaligned, things wake up. Which brings us back to the tsunami. What else did it uncover that day? Some say divers found a second tier of structures deeper down, buried, melted, cut with precision tools. Not even our modern engineers understand. Others say the Indian government classified the scans and said it was a cultural heritage zone, sealed off, no further diving permitted. Because maybe it wasn't just ruins. Maybe it was evidence of a pre-Ice Age civilization, of a global grid, of something that once lived beneath the 7 pagodas and might again. The temple still stands for now, but the shoreline erodes more every year, and the waves are getting louder. Because 1 seal is a monument, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a machine, and 7 7 is a prison. And when 6 have fallen, you don't ask if the last one will collapse. You ask when and what happens after the disappearance of the flying ships from Dwarka. There are cities that sink because of tides, and then there are cities that sink because they're supposed to. In the western shallows of the Arabian Sea, off the coast of Gujarat, lies one of the most contested and quietly quarantined underwater archaeological zones on Earth. Divers whisper about it. Sonar maps contradict each other. Official studies stall out, and the ocean, inconveniently, keeps withdrawing at the wrong times, as if it, too, is hiding something. Welcome to Dwarka, not the modern city, not the pilgrimage site, the original Dwarka, the lost city of Krishna. According to ancient texts like the Mahabharata, Harivamsa, and Vishnu Purana, Krishna's Dwarka was no fishing village. It was a fortress of light, a marvel of engineering, built on an island reclaimed from the sea, a place of palaces, bridges, gold towers, lotus ponds, floating gardens, and flying ships. Yes, flying ships, not just vimanas, something more specific. The texts call them hemispherical aerial craft, used by Krishna and his warriors, capable of moving in all directions, shining with unnatural radiance, described not in poetry but in technical language, with dimensions, materials, even launch sequences. You think that's a metaphor good? Now, explain why the Indian National Institute of Oceanography, in a low-profile expedition in 2001, found geometric stone structures 30 meters under the sea, near Beit Dwarka, that match the layout of a planned city grids. Docks, a 580-meter wall, and something else, a hangar-shaped cavity, unlike anything found in maritime archaeological records. Then the report stopped, just like that, until 2002, when a diver, an official freelancer, too curious for his own good, released grainy footage of what appeared to be a circular metal base, partially embedded in coral, lined with etchings that weren't script, but schematics. He said the site gave off a low-frequency hum, and said his compass spun. Some temples rise from human hands, their stones stacked with sweat and time. Others, like Ellora, seem sculpted by a divine hand, erasing reality itself, carving backward into eternity. Welcome to Ellora, a United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organization World Heritage Site, a defiance of geology, and, some whisper, a cryptic dispatch from a civilization that once tamed the Earth's secrets. Ellora unfurls across 34 sanctuaries, Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain, etched into the Charnandri hills of Maharashtra. Caves is a feeble word. These are not nature's hollows. They are monolithic marvels, chiseled top-down into unyielding basalt cliffs, not built, but subtracted, as if the stone itself surrendered to an unseen will. Among them stands Kailasa Temple, Cave 16, the world's grandest monolithic monument, hewn from a single rock. It demanded the removal of over 400,000 tons of stone, pillars, chambers, stairways, balcones, and tiered levels, all birthed without external supports or materials hauled from afar. Yet the true enigma of Ellora lies not in its visible splendor, but in its hidden depths. Beneath Kailasa, sealed chambers hum with mystery, their presence betrayed by uneven tremors and inexplicable dips in magnetic fields. Radar scans from the early 2000s unveiled symmetrical, box-like voids rooms, not caves, unlinked to known passages, unbound to any faith, and unopened. Why, no one knows the way in. No doors, no shafts, no paths exist, and drilling into Ellora is forbidden, cloaked in the name of cultural preservation. Convenient, isn't it? Return to the surface, where Kailasa's creation defies logic. Scholars claim centuries of labor carved it, yet legends insist it rose in just 3 years. an impossible feat unless the builders didn't chisel stone, but sang it into submission. Ancient texts, the Agniparana and Shilpa Shastras, speak of the Ankusha Vajra, a tool that melts rock like water, spilling from a shattered vessel. Some call it poetic flourish. Others see sonic sorcery, a device or ritual that severs molecular bonds with frequency, cutting without blades, shaping with sound. If such power existed, Ellora wasn't constructed, it was tuned. Each wall and spiral path, a note in a cosmic symphony. Visitors speak of uncanny sensations, dizziness, time slipping like sand through fingers, whispers that drift without echo. The temple breathes, or perhaps it listens. Caves 10 through 12, dubbed Vishvakarma or Carpenter Caves, bare ceilings, ribbed like the hull of an ancient ark. Why would stone mimic a ship unless it echoed a memory of vessels seen or sailed? Ellora's placement is no accident. It forms a sacred triangle with Ajanta's caves and the ancient city of Python, a geometry mirroring tantric yantras that channel and bind energy. Kailasa's innermost sanctum, the Garbhagriha, aligns with the Polaris star, not symbolically but precisely. A shaft guiding starlight to the shrine on sacred nights. How the answer eludes us, but some dare to dream that the temple is more than a sanctuary. It's a receiver, tuned to the cosmos. Those buried chambers beneath, not mere vaults for relics, but data cores, or perhaps prisons. A forgotten tale claims Ellora was built in reverse, not to reach the heavens, but to trap something that fell from them, spiraling into the stone, sealed in a downward dance, locked and guarded. Thus, the temples were carved from above, not raised, for the danger lurked below. The earth itself became a key, locking away, not treasures or bones, but a machine alive, sinking, waiting for a signal. The last time that pulse stirred, skies blackened, seas roared, and stars flickered, not in chaos, but as a warning. Beyond Ellora, the Himalayas rise not as mountains, but as vaults, their icy peaks glittering with secrets that defy death itself. Deep within, wrapped in silence and frost, dwell India's undying saints, not legends, but flesh that refuses time's decay, ageless and perhaps awake. Tales speak of yogis who meditate through centuries, masters who weave breath into light, their bodies found upright in caves, skin soft, nails growing, known as Jivan Mukta, liberated while living. These are no mere stories. Records, photographs, and rare visits bear witness. Consider Shambhala or Gyanganj in Tibetan-lor, a hidden city veiled in the Himalayas, not just remote, but sealed beyond mortal sight. Maps fail. Only the right vibration mind, karma, or password unlocks its gates. Here, immortal sages guard ancient wisdom, their bodies timeless, their science cloaked as magic, guiding chosen souls. Sages like Lahiri Mahasaya, Babaji, and Trilanga Swami met these beings. Some joined their ranks. Then there's Tibetan self-mummification, a grueling rite of meditation, fasting, herbs, and mantras, slowing life to a standstill without death. Some monks succeed, their bodies frozen in lotus pose, untouched by rot for centuries. More chilling are the Rupkund skeletons, over 300 remains encircling a frozen Himalayan lake. Some over 1,000 years old, defy decay in ways science cannot grasp, preserved by more than cold, perhaps by yogic arts like Khechari Mudra or Samadhi, where time itself pauses. What if this isn't mysticism, but technology, an ancient alchemy of breath, geometry, and vibration, locking the body in a quantum stasis? Not resurrection, but hibernation. In a northern Uttarakhand cave, a sealed tomb holds a cross-legged figure, undecayed, untouched. Locals shun it, One shepherd who ventured near babbled in tongues for 3 days, then fell silent forever. Researchers are barred. The excuse: unstable terrain. The truth classified. Whispered to involve India's Ministry of Culture and global powers. Guarding these sites, not for reverence, but containment. These saints, say the texts, are timekeepers, survivors of a lost cycle, waiting for the pattern's return. Not undead, but early, they hold a frequency to unlock a new world, or erase this one. Resurrection is too gentle a word. They are backups, poised for the signal. Then there's Konark's Sunday Temple, not merely honoring the sun, but dancing with it. A 13th century marvel on Odisha's coast, dedicated to Surya. It's no temple, but a machine of stone, shadow, and geometry so precise it hums with cosmic intent. A supercomputer carved in silence, crafted by King Narasimhadeva I. Konark Sunday Temple rolls forth as a colossal stone chariot, drawn by 7 sculpted stallions and adorned with 24 intricately carved wheels. This is no mere legend. It's a truth you can trace online, yet the enigma lies not in the wheel's beauty, but in what they measure, what they chase across the heavens. Each wheel is no ornament. They are sundials, not symbolic, but alive with purpose, with 8 major spokes and 8 minor. They slice the day into precise moments. When sunlight kisses the right spoke, time reveals itself, accurate to the minute, a 700-year-old marvel. It tracks the sun's dance with a precision that shames modern watches, using only shadow and light. This is but the prelude. The temple aligns perfectly with the east-west axis, its sanctum once designed to capture dawn's first rays, bathing the idol of Surya in celestial fire. But the idol is gone. The sanctum vanished, only the mandapa dance hall. The wheels and a heavy silence remain. Some claim collapse. Others whisper of deliberate dismantling. Local tales, however, speak of a power too potent, too alive, a lodestone, the magnet of Konark, nestled in the spire. This natural force, so mighty it held an iron idol aloft, floating as if defying gravity's grasp, was no myth, but ancient levitation. Legend tells of Portuguese sailors. Their compasses spun wild by this magnet's pull, removing it to save their ships. When it left, the temple faltered, its sanctum crumbling. No records confirm this magnet's existence, yet no blueprints, no notes explain how a structure once 100 feet taller was raised so swiftly, so flawlessly. Konark is no mere temple. It's a clock, a calendar, perhaps a transmitter. Its 24 wheels mark the hours. 8 spokes echo 8 pahars, 3-hour spans of ancient timekeeping. 7 horses mirror the week's days. 12 shrines reflect the zodiac, and 365 sculptures count the year's cycle. Konark doesn't just track time, it hums with rhythm. Researchers find it a resonator, its wheels and walls channeling not just light, but vibration. Sonic maps reveal points where mantras linger, sharper, deeper, as if the stones amplify the soul's voice. Stand in the right spot, and your words return with unearthly power. This isn't mere sound, it's architecture that sings. It's granite, chlorite, and laterite stones, laced with piezoelectric properties, spark tiny charges under pressure, whispering of a purpose beyond worship. Was Konark built to praise the sun, or to commune with it? Ancient texts call Surya a conscious force, a cosmic eye, a judge of worlds. Some say Konark links with Modera Sunday Temple in Gujarat and Martand Sunday Temple in Kashmir, a triad aligned with ecliptic tides. All 3, now scarred, once watched the sun's pulse, not just its light, but its frequency, its will. Were they a planetary circuit, silenced when their cores vanished? The wheels still turn, still watching the dawn, waiting beneath Odisha's blazing sky for a signal, a cycle's return. a moment we've forgotten to dread when the sun speaks back. Then there's Padmanabhaswamy Temple in Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, a golden fortress of divinity, guarded by law, ritual, and something older still. Beneath its sacred halls lie vaults, one sealed, not by locks, but by a Vedic sound barrier, a mantra's vibration no tool can breach. Attempts to force it end in ruin. In 2011, India's Supreme Court ordered the vault's treasures, tallied gold coins in heaps, jeweled crowns, diamond-studded relics, golden thrones, and ceremonial blades, valuing the 5 open vaults at $22 billion. Yet Vault B remains untouched, warded by a Naga Banda, a serpent spell, to repel the unworthy. Its door, unmarked by hinges or keyholes, bears only twin cobras and a warning of cosmic calamity for those who dare force it. In 1931, a team's iron tools met hissing air and vibrations that made their blades hum. One guard lost sight, another fell silent forever. In 2011, the Travancore royal family and priests resisted opening Vault B, citing sacred law. The last priest to attempt the Garuda mantra ritual died days before completion. The vault endures, sealed, whispering not of gold, but of knowledge, a relic, a text, a device from an era before the Vedas, locked away for a time yet to come. Vault B of Padmanabhaswamy Temple harbors relics of a world before the deluge. Fragments we dismiss as myth. Some whisper it's a dimensional anchor, not a chamber but a tether, binding something beneath the sacred ground. The temple stands on serpent land, not as metaphor but truth. Ananta, the endless serpent, cradles Lord Vishnu in eternal repose. This isn't mere symbolism. It's a coiled force, a vibrational consciousness sealed by geometry, mantra, and the unyielding Vault B, pulsing like the Kundalini itself. The temple's design sings with cosmic harmony. Every corridor, shrine, and sanctum aligned not for human ease, but for containment. Satellite scans reveal hidden tunnels snaking from the vault, stretching towards sealed caves by the Arabian Sea. Are they escape routes or channels for ancient energy? Tantric sages call Vault B a lens, not a door, warning that without the right mind, opening it would unleash not treasure, but a shift in time. In reality, the priests don't fear lost gold. They dread a fractured world. The other vaults, riches, mere bait to distract from the deeper lock. A key, not of metal, but of sound, awaiting the right mind to stir what dreams within. When it wakes, we must recall why we sealed it. In Adalaj, Gujarat, north of Ahmedabad, a stepwell beckons not to quench thirst, but to probe your soul's depths. The Adalaj Vat, a 5-story labyrinth of stone stairs, balconies, and airy shafts, carved in 1499 by Queen Rudabai after her husband's murder, is numeri monumente. Its floral carvings, dancers, elephants, and cosmic motifs veil a deeper truth. Locals rever it, tourists marvel, but priests stay silent. For this well-trapped resonance, listening, still built as a memorial and water haven, its acoustics betray its purpose. Descend its spiraling steps, and whisper your voice returns. Delayed, distorted, as if another speaks just after you. This isn't an echo, it's a reply, a lag in time. Sound engineers note non-linear resonance, the well's symmetry, and water levels crafting feedback loops at 84 to 108 Hz. The range of human chakras. Coincidence? Stepwells were never just for water. They were portals. Spiritual, emotional, perhaps dimensional. Legends claim Adalaj sits on cursed ground, a tunnel, Sutarhani Vav, plunging not to another city but another realm. The Naga's underworld. Priests once spoke of Paralok. Now they hold their tongues for those who venture too deep. return silent, or not at all. Thermal scans reveal a chilling anomaly, a 6.6 degrees Celsius drop on the 4th level, defying nature's gradient. This is no accident, but a crafted chamber, slowing thought to induce trance. Tantric lore says, a still mind hears the earth's voice. Visitors report murmurs, whispers, conversations from empty air. Some call it wind. Others say the well captures voices, storing them across years. A watchman heard a woman's hum on level 3, later found on a 1970s tape by a researcher who died unfinished. That recording, locked in a university archive, is missing when sought. The well doesn't just hold water, it gathers memory. A stone-carved psychic drive, Adelaide isn't haunted. It's alive, amplifying grief, rage, or peace, reflecting your soul's frequency. Speak, and it answers, not in your words, but in truths you didn't voice. Queen Rutabai didn't build it to mourn. She sealed something beneath, something that breathes through stone, slumbers in water, and stirs when you listen too long. Say a word, and the voice that replies might be yours, or it might be waiting for you to answer back.